Hello. Um, oh gosh, I guess the intro didn't play, folks. I'm sorry. Hi, Sean here for the Sci-Fi Bottle Guy, and well, now I got to mute my. Well, what a horrible producer I am. Anyway, here we are. We are at the Sci-Fi Workshop, episode 5, and we have a wonderful guest this week. I'm going to bring her right in, and we are going to say hello to R.M. Briggs.
Good
Hello.
evening. Good evening.
Hi. How are you tonight?
I'm terrific. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Hello, everyone.
Oh yeah, it looks like we have a few people here, and I think some of them are names that you're going to be familiar with. So I'll start with the FKHC 2005. It actually said way earlier, said hail, and this was I think yesterday.
Yeah, he's
So
a sweetheart. He's
yes,
been working very hard to promote my books, and he's just such a great friend and such a great human being.
and he's saying wee.
Oh, okay. Well, I can do it if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Nice. Maybe we can get a raspberry later.
Well, ask and ye shall receive.
Yeah. I'm just gonna scroll through here. J Man is here.
Oh, Jay,
May
good to
not
see
be
you.
awake when this starts, but wanted to wish you a good stream. RM is the best.
I'm not the best. J-Man, Jason, is actually the best. He is a talented horror author. His
Mm.
wife is an award-winning Canadian poet, and they're just two amazing people. And if you're not following J-Man, you need to be following J-Man. Uh, just a wonderful, wonderful guy. Thanks for the shout out, Jay.
Wow. I didn't know that. Gwagnar is a wrench. Gwagnar, if you can, please feel free to post a link for J Man.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's awesome.
I will
Wonderful guy.
definitely promote that. And speaking of Gwagnar's
Gwagnar.
Wagnar's cool. Wagnar shows up. I have another channel that's called Retro Reels and Games,
Yeah.
where I'm just playing old school video games. I was going to do some movie reviews eventually, but sometimes Wagnar shows up, and whenever I see his name, that's the sound I hear.
Well, what's really crazy about Gwag is that I did not know that he lives in my same province. So
Mm.
we live several hours away from one another, but we spend a lot of time together. And he's my real life friend. So I've become really close with
Oh,
him over like the last year and a half in real life. So we see
wow.
each other all the time. He knows my family. He's been out for family dinner. He comes to my book launches.
Oh,
Um,
how cool.
yeah, we hang out, and I just love him. He's such a loyal and kind friend. I really love that guy. He's smart, he's funny, he's just cool to be around. I
Mhm.
adore him.
Yeah, I've met a few people in real life. I had the pleasure of meeting Gary Ambrosia and Andy Masterson up in Dallas, and
Those are my guys. I love those guys.
yo, they're so cool. And Rob Wright was there,
Yeah.
and oh, I don't know if I ever showed this. You probably have to. So, do you know who Rob Wright is? Rob Wright's Gen X pop culture.
I do not know who that is.
Okay, he's on the panel on Wednesdays on Doomcock's show.
Oh,
Uh,
great.
yeah, and he's been and I barely met the guy. I'm going to turn on my camera and show you what he got me. He sent me this for Christmas.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Look at this.
I know who you're talking about. I know his handle.
Yeah.
I've been on Pop Culture Breakdown with him. Yeah, he's a sweetheart. I know
Yeah.
that
Look what
guy.
he gave me.
Of
This is
course you
signed.
did. That's him. That's just his personality through and
Yeah.
through.
It's
I
still
know
wrapped. I
exactly
don't
who
want
you're
to
talking about.
unwrap it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome and such a nice guy. And I still got to find a proper place to hang it that my wife will allow.
Yeah. Well,
um,
here it's the opposite. It's me who hangs all the weird stuff, but I'm very, very grateful because I have a husband who indulges me. And so
mhm.
in Canada, we have basements where I live, and basements are
Um,
normal and expected here, especially because of the weather. People look for that extra space. It's also a great
yeah.
place to go in, during a tornado. However, I digress. Um,
I wish I had one.
well, yeah, see, that's the thing is a lot of Canadians turn their basements into full recreation rooms and they become the big family room. So
Mhm.
mine is wall to wall Creature from the Black Lagoon, Saucer Men, Star
Oh yeah,
Trek.
you have the full size creature, don't you?
No, I have an 8. I think he's either 8 or 9 foot. I have a fully animatronic. I believe he's 9 feet tall, 9 foot
Oh
wolf
wow.
man. He's fully animatronic and he's just absolutely gorgeous, and I love him. I also have the Universal Studios Frankenstein, who's also
Oh
fully animatronic.
wow.
He's 9. I think he's 9 feet tall. And then I have some other things around the house. I have 2 Area 51 aliens that are fully animatronic. I named them Vert, which is, of course, in French, in Canada, French Canadian. That's green. And then
Uh-huh.
I have Vert Junior, and they're both fully animatronic. And they
There with a V as in Victor. V,
yes,
yeah. Oh, okay, like verde in Spanish.
exactly, exactly. And I have animatronic books. So when you walk by my bookshelf, I have bookshelves all over my home. But if you walk by
Uh,
certain bookshelves, the books will jump out and claws. There are claws that come out of certain books, and some of them jump up and open and frighten you and then slam shut and things like that.
oh wow. Man, the chat is jumping. I think you're a draw here.
Oh,
You've drawn a lot of people.
oh, I
That
wish. These are just some amazing, truly incredible people. These are our friends. These are people from our community, and
yeah.
many of them are my patrons. Just people who I
Mhm.
think the world of. They're just some of the kindest, most wonderful, intelligent, just amazing people you will ever meet.
Yeah, they really are, and people are supportive of my little channel here, and it's great.
Yay!
I'm just thrilled that like people are helping me kind of maintain this little hobby I have, and it's fun to uh, speak with folks about. That's why I'm calling this the sci-fi workshop, which we'll
Yeah.
get to. But
Well, you made me a fully lit NX-01.
mhm.
And so that's actually in my office beside all of my Star Trek stuff.
Is
So
she holding up okay?
yeah, oh, she's gorgeous. She's
Okay.
absolutely beautiful. And I make sure that she becomes a feature whenever anyone comes into my office.
Oh,
But as far as the sci-fi workshop goes, I have the paraphernalia here, all the way up in Canada.
yes, and that's I'm glad you like it because I really like giving these things out. I mean, I have my stuff on my shelves and in the garage and stuff, but they, I mean, I can make a video and look at it. I'd rather give something out to somebody. It's it's a lot more fulfilling. But I want to keep saying hi to the chat here.
Yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, no, this is cool. Miskatonic Madman is here,
Oh, hello.
and I call him Eminem. And Max Redstone, I think
Maximum redstone.
there he is. Yeah, the wait, is Max the poet?
He is. He
Yes.
is the
Okay.
Limerick Meister, the
Yeah, and I've
music
had a
Meister.
chance to be on a few streams with Max and talk with him. It's really cool to hear. We've done some karaoke, I think.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. We met in Baton Rouge.
Oh,
Yeah.
and Mark Harkness is here.
Good evening, Mark.
TJ. Oh, here's one from the Larry.
Oh, Larry. This is a man who is so nice. At least say his name twice, perhaps thrice. Larry,
Perhaps thrice.
Larry.
Great to see you, Larry. And
I
DJ
love you,
Play
Larry.
Nice is here.
Did
Great
you
to
play
see you, buddy.
nice?
And I think that's it. Oh, I can't not show this. Miskatonic Madman sends
Wow.
a $10 super sticker of the Flying Pear, and I wish I could sing the song, the underdog song, but I won't. That's Doomcocks.
Hey, Cloppy could sing the underdog song. Hey, SP4H is here.
Oh, really? Where?
ST4H walked through the door. He's a wrench here. Oh, I'm so glad you guys are friends. SP4H knows Sean Carter from Mars.
I didn't see SP4H.
Yeah, he's here. Hi.
Oh,
Thank you so
hi
much for popping in.
SP4H.
Oh, and
Yeah,
lemon pie.
SP4H always says hi to me anytime I jump into Doomcock stream, and I think I've seen him jump into this stream maybe once or twice.
Oh, good. That's good.
But and Lemon Pie is here.
Yep. Good old lemon pie.
By the way, Lemon Pie is a comedian.
Yes.
We play a game. I don't know if you've seen us play it. It's called Use Your Words.
No.
If you're familiar with, there's a group of games called the You Don't Know Jack games, or the Jack games. And they're real clever stuff. And basically it's all ad lib. They throw up like a clip from a foreign movie and subtitles, and you have to fill in the subtitle of one of the people that's talking, and you can be real creative and stuff. And it's a fabulously fun game. I'll send you a link next time we play. And Lemon Pie almost always wins.
I know lemon pie really well because I believe, if I'm getting my handles correct, and there are a lot of handles out there, I believe that Lemon Pie and I have been friends since I started podcasting and YouTubing. So I think back when I was doing the what was it, Wicked Woman Wednesdays on PJs on Orville Nation, and I think I actually met Lemon Pie through my friend Supreme Heretic, my friend Drew.
Okay.
And back when we were doing BSG, we were doing skin jobs, not toasters, and Lemon Pie was always there.
That's great. And I can't believe I didn't give Lemon Pie a wrench, but Lemon Pie, you got the wrench now. And speaking of wrenches, look who else came in.
Andy! Hi.
Andy Masterson is here. We were just talking about you, sir.
I love that human. He's a sweetheart. I love him and Gary. They're just the pair of them. They're just the sweetest human beings you will ever meet.
Yeah, we had a really cool conversation. He was my my first guest.
Oh, no way. Oh, Andy was your... Oh, yeah, actually, I remember that.
I think you popped in, yeah.
Of course, I try to make sure that I support the guys. You know, I miss being on Pop Culture Breakdown, but unfortunately, they are doing Pop Culture Breakdown right when I'm working. If it weren't for work, I would be with those guys because I love them and I miss them. I love DC. He is such a good guy, and I've known him since 2017.
Wow.
I think I met him before anyone else. And
yeah, I started listening to him right around his second or third video.
Yeah. Well, see, you know what I mean? Like before he was even famous, and the guy is just good people. He's just kind and wonderful, and I love him very much. And he's just a loyal and good friend. And the fact that Andy and Gary are hanging around with him is it's three really great guys that I just really love a lot. So
yeah, and I've been fortunate enough.
Working.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate enough to be on PCB for a while now. So that's been great fun. I know you're working, but Doomcock invited me one day. There was an empty slot, and he said, "Hey, can you come pinch hit?" I think it was for Mexican Iron Man.
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And I have no stage fright. I love performing. I love being in front of people. I don't care. I guess it went well enough because I keep getting asked back.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. Well, it's just a bunch of guys who are just hanging out. Sometimes, with DC, it's going to be a variety show. I mean, he is in full character. This is it. What he's running is more like a radio program. He started with those video essays, but he really turned it into something truly special. And that panel is just, it's FM radio gone wild, and it can be a lot of fun. And I just love those guys. I love them. I miss them, actually. Oh, Andy, never mind.
My negative reputation.
He has a marvelous reputation with me. He's a true gentleman. I love him.
Yeah. And there's lemon pie. Larry is not the same Larry from Fletch.
No.
I finally got to watch that movie. It was really funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was. So anyway, so we've given our greetings to everyone, and I would like to, if I may, read here about Raquel, or about RM.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if anyone here is familiar with the original, the TOS Enterprise, the TOS Star Trek episode, Court Martial, right? With Samuel T. Cogley, attorney at law. And there is a scene where Captain Kirk gets called to the stand, and the computer starts reading all of Captain Kirk's achievements and everything. So if I may, at the risk of maybe embarrassing you a little bit, I would like to read from about the author at the back of Science Fiction Tales, which I'm going to hold up here. I'm going to turn on the camera. There it is, right here. I got the book in my hand. And by the way, folks, the link to the Amazon store for RM Briggs is pinned here in the chat. If you guys are inclined to go and check out what's available, please do so. I think the link is correct. But yeah, I'll tell me if it's not. So RM, is it okay with you if I read some of this?
Well, I'm going to melt. That's usually what I do. Like I just want to hide under a blanket.
Well, you're going to have to suffer through it.
Okay.
Okay. I'll just try to read this as well as I can. It says, presently, RM works as a college instructor and tutor. She has a referred statement of intent and is seeking funding / placement to complete her doctorate. She is honored to act as an on-call peer reviewer for Alberta Academic Review. Her 2016 master's thesis, The Evolution of Emoticons, Web 1.0, Invention or Communications Tradition, has been downloaded by more than 2,000 scholars and researchers in over 50 countries. Wow. That is a cool discussion to have. I didn't know that you were into that. RM has a Master of Arts in Communications and Technology from the University of Alberta, President and Vice Chancellor's letters in recognition of academic excellence, and a Bachelor of Communications with distinction, McEwen Foundation Scholarship, Dean's List, Dean's Medal for Academic Excellence. She is a Golden Key International Honor Society member, McEwen University and University of Alberta chapters. I feel like I need to read this in the Star Trek computer voice. It's like Cogley would have cut me off by now. But yeah, I see here a diploma of professional writing with a distinction and a diploma with honors in broadcast radio arts, which is awesome. You completed your University of Cambridge English Level 5, CELTA or Kelta, which?
It's CELTA.
CELTA. Teaching portfolio in Montreal, Canada, has a TESL, Canada Federation Professional Certificate, and is a member of, man, so many acronyms, ATESL. She is an IELTS certified instructor and invigilator. Okay. You completed your CELPIP, CELPIP, instructor training certification, and CAEL instructor training via the University of British Columbia, Paragon. Whew, okay. I stumbled through that without too many ums and ers. Oh man, that is quite a resume. So I'm going to start with this. What got you into writing?
I think basically I was always writing when I was really young. When I was quite young, everyone, the adults around me in my schools said, you should really go after writing. You're a great writer. And I had a very impecunious childhood. We were penniless. And so I wasn't thinking about becoming a writer. I had a more mature mind, and I was thinking more of going into law and making something out of myself and making sure that I could make decent money. And
Hmm.
so I worked my whole life. I My ex-partner and I owned restaurants and a nightclub, and we worked together on that. And then I had another chapter of my life where I wanted to go back to university, and I did. And it's something that I wanted to do. Originally, I was involved with broadcast news, news radio, and I grew up in a band, in a professional band. So I always had that sort of in my back pocket, and that sort of lifestyle of performance. But just when I went to university, and I just realized that I was really connecting again with that writing, and I just wanted to write. So I just sort of transitioned from writing research papers and nonfiction and academic work and news in broadcast news and things like that into doing fiction.
Okay. Um, I just saw this. FKC says, AKA, RM is smart.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I'm trying. It's just actually I feel like the more I learn in school and the more I take in school, the dumber I feel. So that's really kind of you to say.
I'm picturing that being said in a Pac-led voice.
That would be about the size of it. That would be the size of it.
She
Yeah.
is smart. She will make
Yeah.
the ship go.
Yeah, I didn't actually get to go to university until I was in my late 30s.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I grew up very poor, not just of modest means, but yeah, abject
Mhm.
poverty. And so that this idea of going to university was something that I couldn't reach for. I didn't know how, and I didn't have the tools that I needed around me and the people that I needed around me when I was younger who would know about those sorts of things. And so yeah, so I went as an adult, and then this is the next chapter for me. West!
Wes Kegel's here. Oh, hey.
Hey, sweetheart.
Yes, hey, Sean and Raquel. Just so you know, Raquel, Wikipedia still is bad at writing plot summaries,
Yes,
painfully. But yeah, Wes and I have become buddies.
he's a sweetheart. I love
Oh
him.
yeah, yeah. We rib each other a little bit, but it's all fun. And everyone's saying hi. So let me ask you this. So you were saying, you grew up in poverty.
Yeah.
Now, when you did go back to university later in life, did you find that motivated you in some way to, like, did that motivate you at some point? A lot of times, uh, it, people get motivated later in life, like you did, and I went back to school later in life as well.
Hmm.
Um, and it took a little while of life kind of kicking me in the butt to do that.
Hmm.
Uh, some people find that motivation very early on, like, but it sounds like you and I, like, it took us a while to find it.
Well, for
Um,
me, I think I always wanted that. In fact, I knew by the time I was in about grade 5 that I wanted to go to university. I just did
mhm,
not have the financial means. And
mhm,
academia too it's a pathway, and I think it's really important that the adults who were around you at that time have a full understanding of that pathway. And when you're a person who comes from the underclass, the lower class of people, below blue collar, I just
mhm,
don't think that there are as many pathways for people to get to that. It seems unattainable. The paperwork, the knowing who to contact and how to get involved with it. It's out of reach for a lot of people who come from that class of background, right?
mhm. And how much of that early part of your life informed your writing style? If because I by the way, folks, I just finished reading the first book of science fiction tales, and it's absolutely wonderful. So readable, page turning. You can be done with it in a day, but the stories are going to stick. You don't have to have you know. Uh, 1,000-page epic to have things stick in your mind, and this is a perfect example of it. Um, So I mean, did that early part of your life inform your writing? Because I know some of your characters, it seems like you're really in touch with them.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I think it's maybe got a little bit to do with how my brain works too. You
Mhm.
read all these studies and all of these papers discussing what people see in their mind, and if they have inner dialogue, and if they can see pictures. That graph that everyone shows where it's like this apple that's fading away, and you see people arguing over whether or not if I say apple, if you can actually see an apple and to what degree. um, I have the mind where I'm the one, where it's like 1 to 5, where you can't see the apple at all. I don't know if you've ever taken one of
I
those
have not. That's new to
tests.
me.
Okay, well, it's somebody in the chat can look it up for you and show it to you, but it's just basically like, yeah, there's some science behind it, and some of it's kind of not science, and it's
Mhm.
just it's just different people connecting over the way that their brains work. And my brain, I'm one. I can fully see the apple. I can picture you
Mm.
biting into it. I can slice into it. I can see the inside of the apple. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that when I was growing up, I was like a, a, a kid that liked to be alone a lot,
Mhm.
and I read a lot. So I was a part of the reading log programs in my schools. So
Uh,
you would be given 5 or 6 sheets of paper, and you could go around your neighborhood and you could get a penny a word, or a penny a page, or a nickel a
mm.
word, or a nickel a page. And then that when you were done reading all of your books, you would go around the neighborhood and you would collect all of the money, and you would give it to your
Yes.
teacher, or you could donate it to charity. And sometimes they funneled the money back into the school system to buy books. And sometimes the money was just donated to charity. So I always participated in that. Ooby dooby! Kirk just
Oh,
walked
Herc
through the door.
130. Hey,
Somebody get that man a tequila shot.
hey.
And don't
Oh,
hit the
wow.
jukebox.
What a nice thing to say, Herc. Wow. Two of my favorite people streaming together tonight. Break out the tequila. Drink responsibly.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so I always participated in those reading log programs.
Uh-huh.
And I was a voracious reader. So really, really, really out of control kind of reading, that where you're reading a lot of books. The amount of books that would make people go, really? That's kind of weird.
Yeah, I
So
remember a program we had like that in the eight when I was coming up in the early 80s in California. It
yeah,
was I'm struggling to remember the name. I want to say March of Dimes, but that's not it.
yeah,
But there was a thing, and we had to read books, and then like we got sponsors in the neighborhood, and you read books, and then you
yeah,
you raise money.
yeah,
Very similar. Excuse me,
certainly.
swallowed wrong. Sorry.
That's okay, sweetheart.
So yeah, that sounds very much. Now you're explaining your childhood, and I'm identifying with a lot of it because no, I have to ask you this: were you or are you an only child?
And well, yeah,
Me too.
I have half siblings.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I am a legit only child, and the way you're talking, I found very similar ways to entertain. I had to learn to entertain myself.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
so very early on, I fell in love with chapter books. I was reading chapter books from a very, very young age, and that was normal for kids like me who grew up in the 70s.
Hmm.
And so by the time I started to get into the upper grades, in the early 80s and stuff, I started to fall in love with short story forms. I
Mm.
just thought that short story forms were um, very intriguing. I like the fact that the prose was to the point, and that it was very dense, dense reading, so very complex sentences, and
Mhm.
intellectual insofar as short stories do not rely on characters and their relationships and the emotions they feel towards other people, or their romantic leanings or anything like that. It's that the vast majority of the short stories that I like, especially in science fiction, are focused on ideas, And so that's just something that always resonates with me. So always resonated with me. So I wrote lots of short stories and I threw them away. And then during the vid, um, uh, I we were all trying to find out ways of entertaining ourselves, and many of us were put in these little groups where we had to only hang around with those particular people for health and safety laws and reasons. And so, we were playing board games and doing things. And my
Mm.
daughter, who is an adult, is heavily involved with the arts community here, and she had some arts and artists and involved people at her home for a dinner party, and they were all in her circle because they were working together and things like that, and we were a part of the circle too, so we just closed up our end of the circle. And so I knew that we were going to be having this dinner party, and so I decided I was going to write a story for the dinner party. And I
Oh,
brought the short story, which was Jack, to the dinner party, and I was told, my daughter read it out loud to everyone. Everyone really liked it, and then they sort of said, you've been doing this all these years since you were a kid, and you're just throwing these stories away. Like, you can't do that anymore. Um, you can't do that ever again. And my
yeah.
daughter was actually pretty upset with me, and so I said, okay, well, next dinner party, I'll write another then. And so that's how Science Fiction Tales was born. It was actually born from my daughter just saying, "Yeah, we're going to do something with these. No more throwing these away." And,
Yeah.
and that was it.
Yeah, I think I do remember you saying something about them being tossed away, and I think I felt a collective gasp when when you said, like, "Why?" It's like someone throwing away a painting or something. It's like you don't wanna do that, but, now what you said makes a lot of sense because and forgive me, I'm struggling to remember the name. Uh, there was a science fiction show that
Mhm.
was being reviewed before, and it was very Twilight Zone-esque, but they're extremely short episodes, and it was hard to find them online.
Tales of Tomorrow.
Tales of Tomorrow. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Um, that's what you were describing, and what science fiction tales is like you were saying. It's very dense and very compact and very to the point.
Yeah,
It gets right to it.
yeah,
There's no fluff.
yeah.
No fluff. But I will say this, so some of the stories that I want more. I want to find out what happened to these folks. It's like, I know that's a
Well,
trick.
yes, that's why people enjoy science fiction. Is science fiction is best in the short form, in my opinion,
Hmm.
as a scholar forever, for whatever that's worth. I'm a pleb scholar, but I just think that short forms are ideal for science fiction insofar as they allow science fiction to do what it's supposed to do. And
Hmm.
science fiction is meant to give people a release, catharsis, a journey in which they can massage their ideas and their fears and their anxieties over technology and medical advancements and all of these things that are happening, and the fact that we might not be alone in the universe. And so where do you put those feelings?
Yeah.
Where do you discuss those ideas? So for me, I believe that science fiction at its heart, uh, in my definition of science fiction, is the very oldest one. When we're talking about sort of like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus, this idea of galvanism, or at the time they were using electricity, which was relatively new, on all these organs, and how that could be manipulated in the
Hmm.
future. And so uh, short forms help you focus on ideas, and science fiction helps you to discuss these very complicated things. And so you should be able to feel edified. You should feel like you learned something, like you have reliable information coming from your science fiction. It should just be science fiction. And that should involve futurism and things that are possible, and it should involve hard science and reality and plausibility. And to venture beyond that would be, I think, betraying the genre. And I think it would be, science fantasy or romance or
Hmm.
comedy. These new authors who are focused entirely on character, um, and 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 their characters' intimate lives. I think they're really missing the point of
Yes.
science fiction. And
And
science fiction is very, very important to society, and we shouldn't cut it off at the pass, or behead it in a very ugly way in public. It's not about how you're feeling in your naughty bits, and it's not about your intimacies. That's not what science fiction is for. Science fiction should be for, oh wow, this is the next thing that we're facing in technology. This is the next thing we're facing in medical science. How far can this go? What's the good and bad of it? What's the reality of it? What is its potential? And how can it be abused against society and the individual? Let's
yes.
discuss what that is, and then walk away from it in the same vein as the Socratic dialectic, where you don't tell anyone what to do, or and you don't tell people what to think. You just give them all the information they require and let them make up their own minds. And so for me, that is the most important part of the science fiction process. And so that's why I write it, and it's why I like short stories. I don't need to introduce feelings and intimacies, and the inner workings of people's intimate lives, and interpersonal things in order to pad it out. I just want to talk about the idea, and help you to work through those ideas and that information,
Yeah.
and come out on the other side of it feeling like, wow, okay, some of that was really scary, some of that was really acceptable, and some of it wasn't acceptable, and I think I know how I feel now.
And you just did a wonderful it's like you read my mind, because not only did you segue into one of the main questions I had, you answered it, which
Oh,
was
sorry.
what no, it's perfect. Which my question was going to be, what is science fiction? What does science fiction mean? And you just perfectly, like, went right there. That was beautiful. Uh, I don't have to ask the question because you answered it. And it, a bunch of things came to mind when you were discussing that, and now they're gone. But I'm sure they'll come back. uh it's oh, here it is. Here's one of the things that came to me. So what I kind of see science fiction as is, it takes an idea, or it takes, like you said, sometimes it's like emerging technology. For instance, AI is one. This in modern discussions now, but it was in discussions in the 60s. We had the ultimate computer, right, with Star Trek, one of the most wonderful AI discussions that is still relevant, even maybe even more relevant now than it was back then. uh, I don't know if you want to comment on that, how you feel about that episode and how it reflects what we're going through right now.
Well, that's exactly it, right? I think that sometimes people can see science fiction as I think back then. I think the whole idea of outer space and technology and all of these things, they sort of felt far out and kind of silly to folks who didn't think certain things were ever going to be scientifically possible. And then others had the insight
Hmm.
to understand that this was futurism. And futurism, I think, is an incredibly important component of science fiction writing. Um,
Yes.
and so, yeah, when we look to computers, and we look to the power that they have, and what amazing tools they are for society, it's very important that we have a continued dialogue on their relationship to and with us, and how we manage that on a go forward basis, because the potential is always there. And I just, futurism, like I said, is a very
Yes.
important part of of science fiction. I think a lot of parents who would look back on Star Trek. I was introduced to Star Trek when I was very young, the original series in the 70s.
Hmm.
Um, I think a lot of them were thinking that what they were watching was very silly. We just landed on the moon,
Right.
and they thought, that's not possible, that's never going to happen, and so it seemed rather silly. But then, of course, we look to Gene Roddenberry, who had Isaac Asimov on speed dial, and
Yeah.
we realize why he was so interested in all of these things, and making sure that they were possible, that they were plausible, and that it wasn't fantasy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want anyone to get me wrong. I absolutely love science fantasy, but I just think that now that we no longer have individual creation and we have corporate creation, I just think that
Yeah.
everyone should be cognizant of the fact that there is tremendous genre conflation. And the reason why they're doing that is to maximize sales.
Oh,
So
sure. Yeah.
when you sit down to a science fiction movie now it's got these very strange romantic components to it. And it's not just the guy saves the girl, and or two people fall in love and they kiss. They really go off the deep end with it. And then of course there's also all of this science fantasy that's involved, and then they bring in comedy, and then they bring in murder mystery, and they bring in
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And what they're trying to do is try to make their product, their corporate product, appeal to as many people as possible. And it
Yeah.
didn't work in the final season of Star Trek TOS. We know this, and Gene was open about it. So was DC
Mhm.
Fontana. And it's not a good thing. And we know that corporations love doing this. They've been doing it forever, and now they have more control than ever. They have more control than ever.
They sure do. And hopefully we can keep the flame going. But one of the things I've kind of compared science fiction to, and maybe you haven't, maybe you tell me what you think of this. Um, Science fiction, I think, is you take futurism, like what you do, you say, okay, here's the course of human technological advancement, and here's the course it's on, and it's parabolic, right? It is not a steady thing. It almost goes vertical at some point because it's just exponential. Um, I think science fiction is taking a look at that and trying to project where something's going to be, say 50, 100, 200 years from present time, and what kind of ethical and sociological problems will it present, and are we ready to face them? And the science fiction says we'll take those situations, put someone in an environment like that, and
Hmm.
say, what will human nature dictate happens? What can we learn from it?
Hmm.
What mistakes will be made, and can we course correct now
Hmm.
to avoid that?
Or even just being aware of the issues can change dramatically change trajectory when you educate the public about what is possible.
Mhm.
And when you're a specialist, it really changes everything. And we do need to talk about that, right? We do need to talk about the fact that science fiction is a teeny tiny genre. Its goal was to be in magazines and to turn celluloid, get on a TV anthology, or have a film. And now we don't have magazines anymore. But it was really about discussing these ideas that only geeks and nerds really wanted to talk about. This was
Yeah.
egg this was egghead stuff. And despite what some people wanting to fit into all these different social groups, into all these different social scenarios that they see themselves in, we really can look to a psychographic and a demographic in science fiction, and we know that it is folks who are scientists, folks who are involved in science and technology. They love reading about this stuff. It really is engineers who would like to, push past their area of expertise to understand, developing technologies. And surprisingly, a large section of our nerding geeks who love science fiction. Did you know that lawyers are also a part of our demographic and our psychographic? A lot of
Mhm.
lawyers really, really like hard science fiction.
You that another great segue. I was going to bring that up actually,
Hmm.
but you read my mind. And real quick, Larry says there's not much science in fantasy stories. Yeah,
No,
agreed.
there
Star
just
Wars,
isn't, right? Because they
right?
they they want to. That's when they start. They start trying to. I don't know. You know what I'm saying, Larry. You and I have been friends for so many years, and
Yeah,
Larry is a huge supporter of my books. I would not have been able to do half the appearances that I've done and the opportunities that I've had as an author without Larry's help. Larry has been incredible to me and in helping me. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy the science fantasy. Like, do I like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Yeah, absolutely, I do. And do I love the Hulk? Yeah, absolutely, I do. The
So
Island of
you don't think there's any? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Jekyll and Hyde is science fantasy.
Well, I definitely think in the modern portrayal, yeah. I don't think that it is scientifically feasible for someone to have clothing on to become a 12-foot, 15-foot, 16-foot monster with muscles and giant jaw and teeth and all these things. And then
True.
the minute that they feel calm, they become a regular man and and everything's fine. And most of the time he's still wearing pants.
that don't tear.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
it's just this is it. But it's not that I don't mean to speak disparagingly about fantasy. It's just I think some people
Oh
struggle to
no.
see the line between science fiction and science fantasy. And
Agreed. Yeah, there is a line, and that's why the Star Wars is not science fiction. It's really hard, and it's really not fair to compare Trek and Star Wars, which a lot of people do.
amen, brother.
It's
You're preaching to the choir here. I totally agree. I totally
yeah,
agree.
both are cool.
Yes.
One of them asks questions. Another one tells classical stories and classical tropes and things that we like to see. That those are two
Mhm.
separate things.
And
Uh,
they all have their place because whereas science fiction edifies, science fantasy can inspire, and
sure.
it can be a wonderful place to escape to. And for those who need that emotional escape, they can
Yeah,
escape there. But there
and
will
we can learn
always
from
be
it too.
this group of people who want to have this conversation together. Remember when Andy Weir was just on Patreon like me, and he was just selling chapters trying to get people to read his books? I mean, his books have math in them that upsets people. I've seen
Yeah.
people give 0 out of 5 reviews for Andy Weir's books on Amazon because they have math and science in them. So I hate to quote data, but saddle up, lock and load. When you're talking science fiction, you are talking about futurism. You're talking about things that are plausible. Let's sit down. Let's discuss this. Let's have a great conversation about it. And
Right.
when we're talking science fantasy, we're really talking about escaping to a wonderful place, and being inspired in that space too. You can be inspired to do a good many things in science
Sure.
fantasy. Like look at cosplay. Look at kindness and goodness and the hero's journey. And then in science fiction, you can look at people like Cooper. When
Yeah.
asked by media why he invented the cell phone, Cooper said, "I saw Kirk with his communicator, and I said, I'm going to put the guts in that." I mean, those weren't his exact words; those are my words. But
Right.
the long and short of it is this is what Cooper said.
Yeah.
So, and then you look to Steve Jobs, and you look at the pad. I mean, he even named it Pad. I mean,
Yeah.
that's our pad. So, do
Well,
you know
just
what
one
I'm
less
saying?
D, right? It wasn't
Pardon?
Pat in Star Trek had two D's.
Well, yes, but that's neither here nor there. It's the
Right.
fact that that's the pad, right? And you just see these things, science fiction is a teeny tiny category. There's no money in it. The audience is super small, and ever since we lost magazines, which was our evergreen way of communicating, and by evergreen I mean once it was put into a magazine like Omni or another magazine, and it got distributed everywhere and sat in a doctor's office for 5 years and was on a bus and was in a dirty, greasy deli or cafe or diner somewhere. People were reading these stories and sharing them and having a great time with them. And we don't
Yeah.
have that anymore. You walk into a bookstore and the science fiction section is teeny tiny, and most of it is occupied by science fantasy. And I just
Mhm.
think that we're losing out on a great opportunity to have serious adult discussions about what about all of the things that are possible in what we are doing, what we are creating, and how we need to celebrate it, be aware of it, think it's super cool, do marvelous things with it, but also be careful that we don't turn into the modern Prometheus, that we don't undo ourselves.
Yeah, and it's fair to say I have things that I have learned both from Yoda and Captain Kirk. You know, one of my biggest life lessons is that the Empire Strikes Back, when Luke comes in trying to get the X-wing out of the swamp, and Yoda ends up doing it for him, and Luke says, "I don't believe it. I don't believe you did." And Yoda says, "That's why you fail." That that's great. I learned a wonderful lesson from that, but I also learned lessons from Captain Kirk, many lessons.
Hmm. Just
So
they're just beautiful things, but
yeah,
again, it's just very important that as science fiction people, we are constantly, doggedly determined to focus people on the fact that genre conflation is not done to enhance the material. Genre conflation is done to appeal to the widest audience possible. And when you appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one.
no one.
And it's
Yeah,
okay to have science fiction and really enjoy it and have that intellectual conversation within the pages of that book. And it's being done by an individual, not a corporation. And it's very important to have romance, and it's very important to have comedy. You know, look at me. I'm not a big fan of rom-coms. I absolutely hate them. Okay, if you watched any podcast I have ever been on, you know I hate
yeah.
rom-coms. They just make me gag. You know, um, I hate them.
I know.
They're
Yeah,
so formulaic. You know, everything that's going to happen, blow by blow. It's like watching an old man box. Everything is so telegraphed. You know what's going to happen 15 minutes before it happens. So you know, I hate them. So you know, if that is going to be the premise, and then you're going to try and put some science fantasy into it, what you're talking about now is the undoing of Marvel. This is what's
yeah,
happened.
yeah.
Okay, so it's just people need to be aware that when you're trying to fit in socially, so you're saying I'm a nerd, I'm a geek, I like this, I like that, I like this, I like that. You know, everyone wants to belong to these social groups, but when it comes to our arts and entertainment, we need to be very careful with this idea of everybody in the pool, because pretty soon the pool starts to stink. And it's
Yeah.
okay to have these beautiful genres that have a purpose. When you and I are feeling down, and you know the weather is dreary, and it's dark outside and there's lots of snow, I'm gonna punch you in the arm and say, Sean Carter from Mars, let's go see a comedy. There's a
Hmm.
great comedy down at the cinema. Let's go. And we can go and we can do that. But I
Sure.
don't want to show up at the cinema and you make me watch some rom-com. I'll kick you in the shin and then I'll run away from you. Greg will be waiting in the parking lot. We'll peel out of the parking lot.
That's funny. I would like to take this opportunity. I've just been so enthralled in this conversation. I noticed that there were a couple people that popped in that I haven't said hi to. One of them is Radioactive is here.
Yay!
Do you know Radioactive?
No, I don't, but it's so cool to have another person join us. Thank you so much for being here.
Radioactive has become a pretty cool friend. He is super, super smart. I mean, he did like one of the smartest people I've ever had the pleasure of talking with. It's oh my god! If you just go on, I'll maybe send you a link of one time of a discussion. Radioactive is just extremely knowledgeable in many things, and a wonderfully funny guy and really cool. So welcome, Radioactive. And then we have our good friend Admiral Teague has shown up.
Good evening, fine sir. Good evening.
Admiral Teague is here. Yeah, and I've been having a fun time on Saturdays with that, and we're talking Trek, and I do post about that, and I see that you always like those comments on there, and I appreciate that. And it's we're having a good time revisiting, going through the episodes. So
Yeah.
everyone subscribe. Admiral, if you want to put your link in the chat, I think everyone here probably is a sub to you already, but go ahead and do it. So going back, you mentioned the legal profession
Yeah.
being very close, and that was something I thought of before, because science fiction takes an idea and sends it into the extreme and asks questions, right? Like, well, like for instance, artificial intelligence. What you got to. What's the end game of that? What does that mean, right? What does that mean for humanity? What does that mean for us morally? Are there anything? Is there anything that we need to be worried about or concerned with, or maybe control? I think the legal world also is similar. For instance, if you make a law, any law, and I've heard a lawyer say this: when someone introduces a new law, the way to determine if it's a good law is you take it to the ultimate extreme
Hmm.
to see if it still holds.
Hmm.
And I can't think of an example, but we can use free speech for one. I mean, it's a common modern day idea. Um, where does that end?
Hmm.
You know, are there limits you have to place on it? You have to take a law. And it was a professor I had. It was just basic law 101 or intro to law, tort law and stuff I had to take for my degree. And that's why the professor was really cool. He explained how a law was introduced, and you take it to the most ultimate extreme and you test it.
Hmm.
And does it hold? And so that when you mentioned that, that's what came to my mind as far as science fiction. It kind of does that. It's that same process.
Hmm.
Is
Yeah,
that
well, in Canada, it's when we look to the measure of the law, we're really looking at what an average reasonable person would think. And so
right?
you, as a an average reasonable person, you're not going to be very popular in society, and that's just the way that it is, unfortunately. What we have been pushed to such drastic and perilous peripheries that everyone seems to be hanging on a cliff opposite of one another. And um and and that's unfortunate, because it's almost as if you have Luddites on one side and technophiliacs on the other side.
You're
and
right.
and they don't really care to hear what anybody in the middle says, because it seems as though the person who's safely in the middle of betwixt these opposing teams doesn't have anything to isn't in any danger. And that's certainly the case, but who put themselves in that danger? And I would say that if you cast yourself over a cliff to the most extreme in these peripheries, then you don't want to hear from anyone in the middle. But you do need to hear from folks in the middle, whether you're a technophiliac and you think that this is great, push forward. What are you talking about? Get out of here. And then Luddite, let's sabotage. Let's make this. Let's stop this right now. And those peripheries, they're very popular. They drum up a lot of attention and a lot of bluster and froth and a lot of eyeballs. And we live in a society that is very much addicted to having eyeballs, attracting eyeballs. But yeah, it's a Luddite, technophiliac. Let's talk both of them right now.
Yeah. And I have to admit, I had to look up that word Luddite. A person opposed to new technology or ways of working, and
Mhm.
that's it. And that's ringing a bell. Is that the name of the interface that the people have in the book?
I am not saying a single word.
Oh, come on! Oh, everyone, you're gonna have to read the book.
Yes.
I'm like, it sounds familiar. It sounds really familiar. There
Yeah.
might be some meaning behind that.
Mhm.
Definitely go back and look. Um, yeah, and that's yeah. I mean, without getting into current events too much, but uh, I know a lot of times people that are actually in the middle who are willing to ask questions are often the most attacked.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's like, hey, no, this person just asking questions, and they're like saying I can be bent either way. It's like, no, 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 you're not part of the team. You're out.
Yeah. That's exactly it, right? And
because
and
you're
so
thinking.
yeah, and this is it, right? And this is why not having science fiction around, it just it's I think it's really killed the conversation and the possibility of conversation and intelligent conversation, not
Mhm.
just conversation with consequence. And I truly do believe in the Socratic dialectic. I totally believe that you should not tell anyone what to think, but you can teach people how to think
How
by
to, yeah.
presenting copious amounts of evidence and allowing them to suss out what is true. And in so doing, what you're doing is you're interrogating the truth and allowing people to arrive at it through evidence and not bias evidence, but a balanced approach and presentation of evidence, hard evidence.
And so, I'm sure we're not going to find an answer to this, but here's a question: is how do we combat that? Because it, and this is present not just well, it's present everywhere. Is the people who have deemed themselves the experts or deem themselves to be the ones in power do not like to be questioned. They do not like to be put into a position where they're told that they are wrong, or that maybe that not maybe just wrong, but maybe they were given incorrect information and have a false conclusion, is something we have to battle not only in politics and law, but academia as well.
Yeah.
How do we fight? And well, I know the answer. I know the answer. I think the way to fight that is science fiction,
hmm
asking
Yeah.
questions.
Yes.
So,
And being fearless in your interrogation, because
yeah,
the Socratic dialectic is putting forth ideas with evidence and asking yourself what is true.
yeah,
What is true?
and be willing to be wrong.
Well, no,
And
that's you're delighted to be wrong.
well, yeah,
You don't
that's
need
what
to
a
prove
true
yourself.
side is happy. Like, no, I want to be
Exactly.
wrong about this because
Yes.
then I'll learn something.
Yes.
You
Exactly.
still, yeah, and that's the goal. The goal is learning, not being right.
Yes, and sometimes the goal can even be process. In science, even retesting someone else's research and coming up with a different result is or the same result is gratifying insofar as science seeks to prove.
Yes. Um, I just saw a chat coming at the bottom. Mark Harkness says, "I got the being wrong part down to an art."
Mark,
most most of us do.
Mark, I got to tell you, like I said, the more education, the more education I imbibe, the dumber I feel. Daily, daily. The more you know, the dumber you feel. Perhaps the dumber you are.
Yeah. Oh, here's one from Wagner that makes me think of Mud's women. I used to think I was wrong, but I was mistaken. Everything I say is a lie.
I love you, Gwaggy.
Oh God, that really threw Norman into a loop. That
Yeah,
was
good
that was
old
a
Norm.
yeah. Was it a Mobius loop? Right.
I
Those are
mean,
fascinating.
and still, I mean, Norm, go put on a cup.
I
Just kidding. I'm just joking.
almost ruined my keyboard. Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm prone to that. Thankfully, I haven't. I haven't yet ruined a keyboard, but I'll just put that water right up there. So, my goodness, gosh, there were so many other questions I had. Um, so how do we? Well, let me ask this. My stepson is 23.
Okay.
I think he's 23, and I thought, like a lot of people my age, Gen Xers like us, we think, oh, the current generation is just it's just lost. Like every generation thinks the one behind them is just doomed. Um, I always thought the millennials and Gen Z was really doomed, and then he came home a number of years ago, and thank goodness I don't know who his English teacher was, but he says we're starting to watch the Twilight Zone on Fridays, and I'm like, I want to go kiss this person. You know,
Yeah.
I said, so what do you think? He said, what did you watch? What episode did you watch? So we watched the monsters or something. I said, the monsters are due on Maple Street. He said, yeah, that's it. That's one of the great ones. I mean, they're all great, but I said, what'd you think? He goes, that was really trippy. But he ended up getting it. I'm like, what did you take from it? It's like, we're on the surface, we're just we can put on all the facades of being civilized, but when it comes down to it, we're animals, and we have
Well,
to.
that's the joy of the Twilight Zone. Like I haven't watched the Twilight Zone in years. Yeah, and I mean years. But because there's so much science fiction out there, right?
Uh-huh.
And all my science fiction leanings. But the thing that stands out to me about the Twilight Zone that I love so much is that it was never just science fiction. It was really mixed with a lot of the weird tales genre. It's a
Mhm.
genre that not a lot of people are familiar with in literature, but it weird tales is a wonderful genre that is capable of so much, and maybe it's because of that connection with that sort of gothic horror that we have in our first modern work of science fiction, that being Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus. It has that gothic horror attached to it, and when you have science fiction and you attach a little bit of that gothic horror to it, you get weird tales. And so I just, I've always found the Twilight Zone exceedingly satisfying because
Yeah.
I'm a gothic horror person. So I
Well,
I actually cannot watch any type of gore. I don't enjoy it. I don't like blood. I don't like guts. I don't like anyone being killed. Larry will tell you, and Gwagnar will tell you, I actually hide under the blanket or I put my hands up so that
mhm.
I can't see the violence. I'll even mute it because I just don't want to see other people get hurt. But the thing is with gothic horror is that it happens in the mind. And so there's no violence to see. It's a different type of violence that happens deep in your heart and deep in your mind, and so it has a much greater impact with
Oh yeah.
none of the gore, and so the sort of horror uh, that can only be described in the Gothic sense, because in the Gothic sense is how we run right up to something completely horrific, but we step away from the gore
Yeah,
and we let the imagination do the rest. And
yeah,
so
and
for me,
and
that's a very sweet and beautiful thing. I love that.
and folks, just to back up what RM is saying, there are a couple of wonderful examples of that in science fiction tales. I will not spoil it, but my goodness, there are a couple of wonderful examples of that. And I think what you were just saying, like, the real scary part is what you don't see, which is why I think I like the movie Jaws so much. It's we don't
It
see the
works.
shark until halfway through.
You don't need it.
You don't.
It's like
No,
reading Jane Eyre when or any of these, any Gothic horror novel, horror novel. You like. I absolutely love. Although I wouldn't call it a novel. I think it's actually technically a novelette. It's not a novella. I think it's a novelette. The Island of Dr. Moreau.
I've never heard of a novelette.
Well, it's
I
a
know
matter
novella.
it's a matter of page count, a word count or page
Oh,
count,
okay.
right? So I wouldn't call the Island of Dr. Moreau, although I have it on my shelf right behind me. I would
So
need to
it
check the
it
amount of
used to
pages.
be a book, but was downgraded like Pluto.
No, no, it's not that. It's that once you start meeting people in the publishing industry, people in the publishing industry will let you know, like they'll let you know what actual category it is. So it's just the fact that now that we have the internet, normal everyday people who have nothing to do with publishing now have access to specialized information and
Oh,
jargon
okay.
from the publishing industry.
So
So
would Frankenstein fit into novelette?
no, Frankenstein is a novel.
Okay, because I remember it being very short, so it must be right on the cusp then.
I'm not sure if it's on the cusp. I always have to check the numbers because the numbers are different in the States than they are in Canada.
Oh,
And they're
okay.
also different in the UK. Did you know that?
No, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so I'm looking up here right now. Anyway, there is a chart online. If you want to bring a chart up, you can actually see. All you have to do is
Okay.
type in what constitutes a novelette or novelette word count, and that will bring it up for you. But that, like I said, this is just like talking with a bunch of engineers or lawyers or doctors or dentists or something. This is just jargon from the publishing industry.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to share. I'll present the screen,
Yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah, yeah. Please do.
I did see a couple people pop in.
Oh, we'll go. Make sure you say
No, that's
hello.
fine. Yeah, we'll address this one. So is this right? I've read word count by book type. So flash
Mhm.
fiction,
Yes.
short story, novelette, novella, and a novel.
Yeah. And there's actually one in front of flash fiction. It's called a short short.
Oh,
So a short short is it's even more brief, and its number is also varied. So
300 word count.
yep,
Man,
yep.
you talk about compact and dense. My goodness.
Yes, and this is exactly it. This is why, like, when people say, "Oh, it's not a novel. Why don't you write a real novel?" It's really a misunderstanding of how difficult um, short fiction forms are, and the fact that
Yeah.
there are so many different forms of short stories that they all require varying authorial disciplines. So you're looking at compound complex sentences and different types of syntax and just ordering the story in a specific way in order to when an author creates something, uh, we call it tone, but when the audience receives it, we call it mood. And so it has to be what are you eliciting? And so when you're talking a short, or you're talking flash fiction, you're really eliciting a very pronounced response. And so yeah, it's very much equal to a novel. It's just different.
Right. Man, all these, oh, man, I'm learning so much. I do want to take a moment here. There's a new name I'm unfamiliar with. It's Oliver
Oliver
Belmont.
Belamonte!
Oh, you know Oliver?
I do know Oliver. How are you, sweetheart?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
He's
Oliver
probably
says,
one of the most he asks the most cerebral questions. And when you were little, like when I was little, I used to play with a lot of boys. We used to play like cowboys and stuff like that with all the
mhm.
boys. Do you remember how, like, when you were little growing up in the 70s, little boys would always say, if a bear and a tiger fought, who would win? And so Oliver is like one of those guys, except for he's smart and he's a grown man. And so he'll ask you the most intricate questions, pitting different sci-fi um, IPs against one another, and
Oh,
even
okay.
discussing which characters you think are, redeemable or comparable. And
Okay.
he has a complex way of looking at different science fiction um, creations and making wonderful things out of them that are amazing conversation starters. When Oliver Belamonte appears in your chat and he starts asking people what they would choose or what they think is best and stuff, he can light up a whole chat room.
Oh,
Oliver's
wow.
great.
Well, I thank you for popping in, Oliver. I appreciate it and appreciate you for chiming in. I'm sorry it took me a while to acknowledge your comment and a new name. And there's also scrolling up here. I did see another super sticker that came through from our friend Radioactive.
Oh, that's so
I
kind.
I think he did. Oh, here it is. Okay, and I don't know if it's on StreamYards, but it's another super sticker from Radioactive for $5. Thank you, Radioactive, my friend. And he's just saying, keep it up. And I will, Radioactive. I appreciate you, man. It's always a pleasure talking with you. And my goodness, it's like whenever we talk with Radioactive on a stream, sometimes we'll do it like Admiral Teague will do the Saturday show. And then after, sometimes we'll go to my retro show. And we'll have Radioactive come on. And last time, we started talking about aliens and UFOs and stuff like that, and we got what we called a data dump. He is so knowledgeable because I mean he's got some deep knowledge of things that go on in the military and the whole thing. And gosh, he does open your eyes, and what a wonderful conversation. Knows so much about like advanced aeronautics, the SR-71, and like all. I mean, gosh, you can go on.
You have to stay friends with someone like that because it is
Yeah.
such a rewarding conversation. It's such a rewarding friendship to have. I'm friends with LT, Lord Thoth, however you want to pronounce it. He pronounces it Lord Thoth, at least Clobby did. We connected in real life. And I had some questions. Of course, he's an RCMP officer here in Canada, and he is just absolutely a brainiac. And I had some questions about guns for a scene that I was entertaining playing out. And I needed to know the science of how this would go down to include it in one of the stories. And I actually wound up changing the entire way that I made the scene happen because I sat down to him and I said, look, you're a SME in publishing, a subject matter expert. We call them SMEs.
Right. Yeah.
You're a SME. Tell me about this. And we had this marvelous conversation where he basically told me the way that it would go down in the way that the ballistics would. Yeah. And so anyway, I wound up changing the entire scene because he was my SME.
Oh.
So you got to love a SME. You have to keep a SME around. SMEs are the best.
Well, Radioactive is an MSME, multiple.
There you go.
And speaking of wonderfulness, I didn't say that, but I'm segueing. Admiral Teague sent a super sticker for $3. A bird saying fist bump. I think it's a pigeon or something. Yeah. And what Kegel sends my hero. Well, it doesn't show on the screen, but
nice.
It's a Bathsheba. I think that's what it's called. I'm so unfamiliar with the anime stuff.
I don't do the anime.
I don't either, but I know it's interesting stuff. I've seen a few things, and it's
DC knows what they all are.
Oh, especially there's a listener named Jack White who sends.
I'm unfamiliar with him, but I will tell you this: if DC sees an icon, he can tell you immediately what it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and a lot of that is thanks to Jack White. Jack White is like an encyclopedia anime.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't hurt that DC's a culture vulture. He's the king of culture vultures.
Yeah, and Larry's right. Anime does have some good science fiction in it. The thing is, though, it is so big, and so there's so much you don't know where to start. And there's so much good science fiction that is older. I haven't watched yet. I'm like, no, I got to go back to the old stuff. Like, for instance, I still have not finished UFO or UFO.
UFO.
I have not finished it yet. You know why?
That is the second greatest science fiction series in the history of television. Second greatest only. Well, obviously,
Is what?
Obviously, everyone here knows.
Well, Star Trek, right?
Yeah, TOS.
So where does Blake 7 fit in?
Blake 7 is a little further down for me. It's not quite as high as it was for Clobby. I absolutely love Blake 7, and I absolutely love The Prisoner, two properties that he introduced me to that I did not know about before I met him. I absolutely love Blake 7. Um, to me, Blake Seven is cherry science fiction, because when you watch it, you're not watching a television show. You feel like you are watching a stage play, and
Yeah.
the props are beautiful, and the acting is cool, and the stories are the ideas are amazing. My favorite, of course, being when the planet was alive, but it was like a single entity, and
Mm.
what lived on the surface was not a part of the entity, and the entity was the earth, the middle of the earth. That was an amazing episode. I thought that that was such a cool idea that I just love it. I love Blake Seven, but it's
Sounds
not.
like that might have been copied in a recent movie that James Cameron might have made.
Well, uh, they copy the good stuff. Yeah, Blake
Yeah.
Seven is really good. I love Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and the Kubla Khan, and that whole area, that whole genre, that whole time period when people were imbibing large amounts of laudanum, and creating these fantasy, um, fantasy poetry and fantasy authorship, and these wild ideas. And I just feel like The Prisoner is a part of that. It's like
Hmm.
it's exactly like that for me. So I think that it's absolutely beautiful, and I'm not surprised that an Irishman wrote it, because we're the
Yeah.
island of storytellers,
Ooh,
don't you know? But
by the way, speaking of Irish, I have switched to Irish butter.
oh, good.
I
I'm glad.
love it. It is so good. Yeah, I know it's big.
Now all I have to do is get you to switch over to the cheese.
Oh yeah, I've had it before. It's creamy.
Oh, good. Yeah. What kind did
Um,
you have?
oh god, it was on a hamburger in Las Vegas.
Oh,
I can't
Kerrygold.
remember.
Kerrygold's good, but just remember that Ireland has some of the most luxurious and high-end dairy in the world, and
Mhm.
so when you can have any number of glorious cheeses. We have fabulous beef, our butter. Well, of course, we're the largest butter market in the whole
Yeah,
world. So
it's good, man. It goes good on a patty melt, I'll tell you.
yeah.
And good night to you, Max Redstone.
Max, night, Maxie.
Max is off. Good night, kind sir. Thank you for
And he
popping
left
in.
without even giving us a limerick. What the heck, Max?
Oh, could we maybe entice him to do one?
Well, next time he comes, or well, I don't know. I mean, he's pretty quick on the draw. Max might
Yeah.
be able
Well,
to
if
do
you're
it.
tired, yeah, I don't want to put
Max,
you on the
thank you
spot.
so much for being here, sweetheart. Have a good night, honey.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Um, but yeah, goodness gracious, where were we? Oh yeah,
Our top five.
yeah, the top stuff. Yeah, Star Trek number one, of course, but yeah, I didn't know where you put Blake Seven, and UFO. Do you pronounce it UFO or UFO?
It should be UFO, and that's
UFO.
because the show was originally supposed to be called UFO, and that they were going to put an E, a small E, at the end. So it was going to
Oh,
be the acronym, right? So unidentified flying object, and then with a small E, and it would be UFO,
and
and
what did the E stand for?
like faux.
Oh, foe, like an enemy or an
Yeah,
adversary. Oh, okay.
exactly. Exactly. And so knowing this, the if you watch in the production order, you hear Straker say UFO. And everyone in
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So it's not UFO, it's UFO. Anyway, it is the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful things ever created for television. It is absolutely glorious.
It really is,
It
and
is
that's why I'm not
dangerously
finishing it.
cerebral. It doesn't take any, it doesn't try and make any apologies for being cerebral. It is challenging. It is luxurious. It is gorgeous. It is the good stuff. It is glorious, glorious science fiction.
Yeah, it really is, and that's why I haven't finished it, because I know how many episodes there are, and I know once I finish it, it's done, and I need to get over that and just watch it because I don't know what's gonna happen to me tomorrow. I
Yeah.
need I need to get it. Oh, look at this. We have the limerick.
Oh, no
We
way,
have the
buddy.
limerick.
Go ahead and
Okay,
read it.
I will try to read it. It seems I must give a benediction. In literature, there is much friction. None but idiots in sight, even a fool can write, but so very few can write good science fiction.
Oh,
Very good,
Maxi,
Max Redstone.
Maximum Redstone.
Thank you, good sir. Wow, I'm honored.
Good evening, fine sir. Love you. Mwah, mwah,
You have
mwah.
a good night. Yeah, and so I need to get over it and just watch it. I need to watch The Prisoner. Uh, I mean, if there's one thing that's being, I've been on the Wednesday show with Doomcock, thankfully, and we do this segment called Movies We Love, and I've been exposed to some really great movies that I hadn't seen before.
Mhm.
And I watched Shane for the first time. Have you
Oh,
seen that?
yeah, but a long, long, long time ago.
Yeah, I cried. I cried big time
Well, I'm
at
glad
the
you're having a good time. I mean,
yeah.
that's why I love him. Like, I love him. He's just very sincere, and he's just a sweetheart, and I just really love him. I think he's a great guy.
Oh yeah, Doomcock is great, and
Mm.
I watched Shane, which was made in 1953, and with Alan Ladd, uh, one of the best westerns ever. Samuel T. Cogley's in that movie. I
Yeah,
forget the
and
actor.
the thing is, DC likes all the old stuff like I do too. So I
Yeah,
like the old stuff.
I do
Just
too.
do. I just do. It's not only does it feel like a hug, but I just find it more intellectual. I find it more challenging. I find that the production is better, the acting is better. I love everything about it. I just love everything about being able to just relax and being entertained. And
Yeah,
the thing is too is that what you're seeing in this time period of these older movies that we like and these older shows that we like is that you're engaging with one author. Sometimes you're engaging with a couple of authors. A few authors are working together,
but led by an author.
but led by somebody with a dramatic and beautiful vision. And
Right.
so, but that's not what we have today. Today we have corporate writing
Oh,
rooms filled
it's
with,
run by committee, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and these screenwriter people, script writing people who work with lawyers and marketing people and even psychiatrists and psychologists, and they're just trying to get the next $1 billion thing. And
Yeah.
so, the thing is too is even if the material is challenging in an older film, there's a comfort in the fact that the way that you're engaging in this dialogue, the way that you are being challenged, is from one mind to another, and that is exaggerated in the novel. If people
Yes.
can read a novel and completely disagree with what's being said in the novel and walk away from it saying, that was a really great book because you engaged with another person's mind. Another person moved the furniture in your mind, and maybe you thought the room looked stupid, so you put all the furniture back. You know,
Yeah.
Aristotle said, it takes an educated mind to entertain a thought without accepting it. And so you're engaging with the individual, and now you're engaging with a corporation that is very clearly saying that they have political ends and political means and partisanship, and you're there to play along. And so it's sort of, I find it infantilizing because it's almost like, like when my nieces and nephews were watching her, what's that show, the with Skeletor, the
He-Man.
yeah, and everything is that, it's a like Aesop fable, but for dumb people. And so,
Yeah. Well, He-Man's very fantasy
yeah,
stuff
but
too.
what I'm saying is that it's this hyperdidacticism is what it is, and that's just an academic term for over moralizing. It's going to somebody and saying to somebody, look, you're guilty of wrong think, and the way you think is not correct, so we're going to present to you how everything you say and do is wrong so that you can right yourself by purchasing this. And so they're turning these films and these TV shows not into works of art that are beautiful and fun and amazing and edifying to watch, to imbibe, rather a way, even if they suck, to vote for what you think through this hyperdidactic
You know, you
process.
bring up something, and I don't want to, I hate interrupting you, but I don't want to lose this thought because what you just said, this hyperdidacticism, did I say that
Yes,
correctly?
yes, absolutely.
No, the way you just explained it is something that science fiction warns us about.
Yes.
Think of 1984. Think of any number
Hmm.
of dystopian things of big state, big brother type of things.
Hmm.
That's what you just explained. A lot of
Hmm.
science fiction warns us against the very thing
Hmm.
that is being shoveled on us right now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah.
that
And
isn't that interesting?
well, it's for me, I think that, like I said, it's very insulting because it's the infantilization of the public. You don't respect the public. You're just finding ways in which you can admonish the public and say, look, this is what you need to do, and you need to buy this. You have to buy this, and
Yeah,
keep in mind too that these aren't altruistic individuals, with some sort of cause, and they're trying to get you to jump on board with them. We're talking about hegemony. We're talking about very, very powerful millionaires and companies and you know groups, political groups who get together and they use their money, they direct their money to making these projects that are meant to do nothing but inflict this hyperdidacticism. So the hyperdidacticism goes with this hegemony. These aren't altruistic individuals with some book that they want you to read so that you can figure out whether or not you agree with them. You're talking about billionaires, millionaires, corporations, governments, and people who get together and say, let's make something so that we can identify the wrong thing and
yeah.
make sure that people buy this. And if you don't buy it, it isn't that it's because have you noticed in the last 20 years, no movie sucks? They're all perfect. They're all incredible. And if you don't buy them, if you don't go see them, it's just because it's not for you. And
They're
there's
all a
something wrong with
triumph,
you.
as they say. Yeah. Oh, it's a triumph.
Yeah.
No, no. So that brings up a good question. Something I've thought about is the example I'll give is the movie Tron. I don't know. Are you familiar with that movie?
I saw Tron. What year did Tron come out?
1982, I
Yeah,
believe.
I saw that in the theater. I saw Tron in the theater.
So that movie has become a cult, is a classic, and it's gotten, it didn't really get appreciated until later. It flopped in the box office. Even its sequel, it's one of those movies where it was so really deep. Uh, it took 10 to 15 years before people started to understand what it was about. And I think a lot of really good science fiction has that quality where it's not truly appreciated you many times until later when people have, because science fiction is, like you say, it's futurism, and it's people projecting current state, taken to the extremes into the future, and sometimes people need to see that future full flow out, and then they can go back and look at something that was made predicting what is current day.
Hmm.
So how do we get people into science fiction now? I gave the example earlier of my stepson who saw Twilight Zone for the first time, and I'm thinking, do you see now? Or are you starting to think? Uh, do we point back to the old stuff, or do we find current things that are new and say, "Here, read this and think about it"?
Well, I think everything for me always leads down one path and one path only, and that's education. And so
Okay,
for me, it's also letting people know um, what they're watching and what they're communicating, and to think critically. And I think that by and large, a lot of institutions today have failed to teach people to think critically, because
right.
as a communication and technology scholar, for whatever that's worth, I'm just a pleb, but I'm mentioning that credential because it's important for me to say that there are mounds and mounds of data and research and conversations and active dialogue about how these products are being made. And these products are not being made by authors. I mean, there might be some script writer in the room, but that's not an author. That's a script writer, number one. And number two, I don't think that people realize that in many cases, when you're talking about these advertising and marketing people who are in the room, there are even admissions that some of them are psychologists. And you know, there was a documentary where they were interviewing a whole bunch of comm scholars, and one person was talking about being in one of these writers' rooms where there was a psychiatrist. So, trying to increase the nag factor to get their children to nag their parents
Yeah.
to buy things and to have tantrums, and that they're training children to do this through the commercials on a children's network. So
Oh,
it's just very important for people to be cognizant of the fact that when they're watching these movies and they're saying to themselves, that they're a big fan of this one specific director. That's great and everything, but I think they fail to realize that the project is being run by a room full of corporate people who have an idea, and their ideal is to produce the next billion-dollar picture, to make as much money as possible, so that those investors get what they want, and they can produce the kinds of materials that they want. And at this
yeah.
stage in the game, I don't see very much entertainment as a communications and technology scholar. And when I'm looking at the semiotics and I'm looking at the way that things are being made today, I'm not seeing art. I haven't seen art for many years. What I am seeing, though, is propaganda.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make that loud noise. I dropped something.
That's it.
Yeah, it is, and we can see that as evidence, something we joke about on Admiralty's channel. If you look at a modern day show, some of with the filth, as you've dubbed it, you watch one of that, and it has 27 producers.
Mm-hmm.
The show, it's like, okay, yeah, fine. You want your money now. I think really good science fiction goes after money 10 years from now, when people realize, wow, that was great. And it slowly builds a following, and not no current stuff. It's really hard to make science fiction that is just really gets into the current discussion and everyone loves it, because it's very it has to be commercial to do that. Science fiction can't be commercial.
No. And this is what I was saying earlier about also the genre conflation. When you lose magazines, you're losing one of the most prolific ways of sharing science fiction. But once you start introducing genre conflation, you thoroughly destroy science fiction, because science fiction does not have mass appeal. It doesn't. I'm sorry, it's not. You don't get into science fiction because you're looking to make the big bucks. We have a wee little tiny audience, and the only time you're going to make any money is if you have somebody who reads something that you wrote, they really love it, and they make some Hollywood blockbuster. But not everybody is Andy Weir. Not everybody is Andy Weir. And I feel so happy for him. He started out on Patreon, people just, buying chapters from him. And then suddenly I watched his books become films.
Yeah. Speaking of current science fiction stuff, I want to do a moment here and promote. Are you familiar with Casey Asowski?
The name sounds familiar, but I think he's from DC's chat room, right?
Yes. Yeah. Casey is a wonderful guy. He's been with Doomcock for a long time, and he finally created a YouTube channel. I'm going to put that into the chat here, and it's called Casey's Curious Creations. And he does the stuff. He gets some AI images and stuff, but he writes these wonderful stories, very short form. I think you would like them. I will send you a link to it. They're about 5 to 10 minutes. He narrates the stories. He writes them himself, and he's putting them up. And it took the community a long time to convince him. So I'm trying to plug him because he's really putting his neck out there. Oh yeah, and then Wes Cagle just put it up there too. Uh, I
I
think
like
you'd
how he
like
was
it.
timid because it's just so scary to like put your stuff out there because you never know
Yeah,
how people are going to react.
it really is. But some of the stuff is just amazing.
Mhm.
And I think you would really like them. They're very short. They're very provocative, futuristic stuff, but it's not just general science fantasy things. I think you'd enjoy it.
Well,
um,
anyone who joins the ranks, I think the current person who's in charge of the science fiction um, authors association or whatever the acronym is,
uh,
I think that person, I think it's a lady, and I think the book that her latest book that she wrote, I think it was Gwagnar who was telling me she only sold 1,000 copies. That's
oh,
crazy. That like think about how much. Yes, the SFWA. God, I love you, Gwaggy. And she sold, I
Science
believe,
Fiction Writers Association, I'm
yeah,
guessing.
I believe she sold roughly 1,000 copies of her book. And so think about what's happening in science fiction. Think about
Oh,
gatekeeping. Think about the fact that it's already a teeny tiny genre where you don't do it because you're trying to make money, because you're not going to make a lot of money.
right.
But
Uh,
anyway.
yeah. So here's his page. He's only done a new channel, but look at all this content he's made. These are all stories he's written.
Nice.
Ghost Squad, Flash of Glory, Awoken Ancient Alien Spirit, The Coder's Battle, The Changelings, Love Requires Sacrifice. I mean, some really interesting stuff here.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you're enjoying it, and I'm very happy that somebody is exploring their desire to write. I think that everyone with an interest in writing science fiction should be writing science fiction. The
Yeah,
more the
and
merrier.
I would say you would like, if you look at these videos, they're all 9 to 10 minutes long. They're pretty short. He just narrates them and reads them and does some AI imaging in the background just to give you something to look at. You know, really, really good stuff. And everyone, please subscribe to Casey. He's a wonderful guy, and I think it needs to be supported. You know,
Hmm.
I really do. Oh, it's starting to rain here. Ooh. Yeah, my roof is still damaged from the tornado last year.
Oh, wow.
I finally got the insurance finally came in yesterday and gave me an okay for a new roof.
Oh, wow.
So let's just
That's
hope
a
it does.
long wait.
Hope it. Yeah. I could tell you a horror story. Oh, but I finally my agent finally stepped in and took care of it.
Oh, good.
But
That's good.
anyway, I know we're kind of running up to 2 hours here. So there was a question I've been dying to ask you, and hopefully, would you be okay if I ask you this
Shoot.
last one? Okay. And it was one I was trying to get to, and it's about the creative process. Um, and this is where I kind of want to compare. I just make models. I'm cutting plastic and I'm gluing it together and I'm putting lights in it and I'm doing things. I'm in the middle right now of actually doing my first kind of not authentic creation, but I'm adapting the Enterprise C,
Hmm.
which is my favorite Star Trek ship, by the way.
Nice.
It's just I think it was a perfect mix between the Enterprise that we knew from Kirk and then the Enterprise D. It was just a nice mishmash of those. But there are some corrections I think were needed to the ship, and I'm making them. But be that as it may, I mean, when I'm going to do models, I have to be in a certain mindset. I can't just go out to the garage and start working.
Okay.
I need to have my mojo. I need to have a reason to do it. I need to be motivated, or else the work is not going to be good. But sometimes because I'm doing this channel, I try to get a video out per week, and there are times where I just have to say, Sean, you got to go out and do some stuff, and record some content. And I have to kind of find a way to be motivated, and it's hard. And I don't know if I'm faking it or if I'm doing a good job faking it. Uh, do you find a similar challenge when it's time to write? I mean, what do you? I'm sure this is something every writer has been asked, but what do you do when you? Okay, I gotta get in the mood. How do you turn it on?
Well, my process is probably a little bit different because I know that I believe the statistic is 84%. 84% of North Americans believe that they have a best-selling novel in
Uh
them.
huh.
They just haven't had the time to write it.
Do you think
So
that's true? I mean, do you think that I don't mean the stat. I mean, do you think that they're correct?
I can't answer that.
You can
Um,
say no. I don't think it's. I don't think it's a. I mean, I think it's true that people believe that. I don't think it.
well, I think that I probably would have scoffed at that previously, but now I sort of think to myself, well, what's the alternative? And that is right now that that corporations are choosing people who are already popular or people who have
Mm.
a big YouTube or a big Patreon or a big Instagram following, and that's
Yeah,
how
it's
they
the
choose
same
to
reason
publish
why
them.
we get sequels to movies that are 20 years old.
Yeah, but you have to ask yourself, is Twilight a good book?
I don't know.
Is Twilight well written? Would
Don't
you
know.
send Twilight to be a part of some sort of mission in space to make contact with other life forms?
Wait, Twilight, the vampire
Yeah,
story?
yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen the
That's
movies.
wildly
Haven't read the
popular. How
book.
about 50 Shades of Grey?
No.
Do you believe that
Oh,
50 Shades of Grey is well written?
uh, it probably is. I haven't read it.
No, it's
Uh,
not. It's
thankfully, I
not.
have. I mean, I don't know. I haven't read it, but I used to get angry. Like I would be working with people, and there'd be these people I was interested in dating, and they're like, "I love 50 Shades of Grey." I'm like, "Okay, I'm not interested in you
Mhm.
because they say everyone needs a Christian or whatever the guy's name was in their life." I'm like, I would just tell them, "Honey, there's a reason that's in the fiction section."
Well, I'm going to let you off the hook now and let you know that it was unilaterally panned by the critics, by all critics, and by all people who study literature
But it was
and
successful.
language. And I
Yeah.
think yeah. So anyway, so process. So my process as an academic is far different, and it's also important to say that I went to university for 4 years, and part of my studies, well, I went to university for a lot longer than 4 years, but one of my undergrad parchments is in writing, and so I studied writing, and so my process is a lot different than perhaps the 84% of people who do other things for a living. They're doctors and nurses and engineers and firemen and all of these other professions. So I come to a story with an idea. I usually I read a lot of science and I read a lot of technology and I read a lot of research papers and a lot of stuff that other people probably would not want to read. Um, I like Harari. I like Dr. Harari from Oxford University. I think he's amazing. I think you pronounce it kaiku. I'm not Japanese, so my Japanese pronunciation is off. Plus, I don't talk about him very much. I just read
Mhm.
his books about the future and about the way that technology is developing. And I get
Are you
those
talking
ideas.
the futurist Ichiro
I think it's Michio.
Michio Kaku,
Yeah,
right?
kaiku. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right. I was thinking you were talking about a fiction writer,
No,
right?
and I
Michio
love
Kaku. Yeah.
yeah, and I love Stephen Hawking, and I
Oh
read
yeah.
th those books, and then I
Uh,
come away with some ideas in my head,
how
and then I
about
have a
Brian Greene?
journal.
Have you read Brian Greene's stuff?
No,
He's a
I know of him.
modern day string theorist.
Yeah, I know of him. And then I write my ideas down in a notebook. I have
Uh-huh.
notebooks. And I do share something in common with Gene Roddenberry. where I'd like to write things down on little post-it notes and napkins and things like that, and slip them into my journal, into my notebook.
So
And
do
from
you
that
always have
notebook,
them in your pocket? Like, are you in arm's reach of the Post-it notes at all times?
yes. And so I usually write things down in my journal book, which is actually just like my idea book. And then I write stories from that. I develop an outline like I was taught in university. So
Uh-huh.
I come from it from the academic sense, where I learned publishing, and I learned publishing for nonfiction, and so in science and in technology, in comms. And so I come at it from a more technical a more technical process, not so much a creative process. The creativity happens in my brain, and then what's worse is I have a temperament. It's not psychology. I don't claim it to be psychology, so please don't try and pillory me in the chat. But I'm an INTJ, and so that's my Myers Briggs temperament. And so I'm not somebody who likes to appeal to people's emotions and manipulate people emotionally. I hate that sort of thing, and so my process is very much tied to being an INTJ. I have a very linear, analytical, logical process that involves a lot of facts. So I have to study a great deal of the science that I am going to be talking about before I will talk about it. So in my one of my latest stories, uh, I forget which one. No, I'll remember the name of it. See,
Well,
I released my
before I do that, I want to talk about that. What you just said, the INTJ.
yeah, sure, we
Um,
can talk about that.
Yeah, I just want to just because some people may not know, and I remember them from some training I had. So
Yeah,
introvert.
whenever you take a leadership thing, I took it in university.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I've had to go through a lot of those.
Yeah,
You
but
scatter
then
you
people
scatter
on
chart yourself and
yeah,
everything.
but people on social media think that it's a psychological test, and it's not. It's just a
No,
temperament test to tell you
yeah.
like what kind of a person, like how you like to work. And unfortunately, I'm like in the less than 1%, being an INTJ female. I believe it's only 4% of men, and
Oh,
less than
wow.
1%, less than 1% of women are INTJs. So
Ah, okay. So just real quick for the chat. So it's introverts, uh, intuitive, prefer to focus on possibilities and the big picture, which is very science fiction. Thinker, tend to make decisions using logical analysis, and judger tend to be organized and prepared. So anyway, sorry I stopped you there.
no, it's
Uh,
okay. It's okay. So
but yeah, it's interesting stuff. Yeah, and I encourage everyone to take find a good test and take that. You'll learn a little bit about yourself.
yeah, and they make, whenever you take one of those leadership classes, they make you take a whole whack of those. And so I took a
Yeah,
few leadership classes in university, and of course you're forced to take a whole whack of them, and then you figure out, oh, okay,
yeah.
why, this is
I
why.
had to, yeah, and I will not tooting my horn, but I have an associate's degree in management and supervision, so I had to do a lot of these things.
Oh,
And
so you understand that it's not a psychiatric evaluation, but you understand that it is 1000% correct when you put 12 people into a room and you see them doing exactly what the
absolutely,
Myers-Briggs test says about
and
their
it's
temperament.
helpful. You identify what those people are, and you
Mhm.
know how to work with them.
Yeah, and to help them better. Yeah. So the one of my latest stories is, I believe, productive. I believe it was productive. I just published that. And if you're a part of my Patreon, you actually get access to all of my rough drafts. So this will be for Science Fiction Tales Volume 3. Third collection is coming out. I'm halfway
Ooh,
done writing it, and I've already released 5 rough copies, half of the book to my patrons. Um, the, the latest, one of the latest stories was productive. I believe I released it in August. It's just over 3,000 words. For that particular story, I did extensive research on the particular surgery, and I went to the clinicians, and
Oh,
and
wow.
and I studied the latest clinical research, and the discussions around the latest clinical research. And then I think Gwaggy, when I was finished writing it, and Gwaggy got a hold of me after he read it, he said, "Can you send me those papers?" And I think I sent him to a couple of the research and medical papers. So for that particular story, I believe that was what, May, June, July, August. So I released the Helianthus project in May. That was the first story from the third book. When Productive came out, I had spent all of May, June, July, and August, 4 months, um, studying the particular surgical procedure
Wow.
and the science behind the prosthetics. So so for me, what is happening behind the scenes is very different, because I'm trying to organize it in a way that an INTJ would like to, which linear, facts, no emotion, no characterization, nothing. Just give me the hard science.
Uh,
And now let's try and take that hard science and not betray it, but to make it comprehensible to anyone from any walk of life. And it's not about intelligence. It's not. It's not about intelligence. I truly believe the same thing Gene Roddenberry believed. It's not about that. It's that if you're an engineer, you have an area of expertise. If you're an accountant, you have an area of expertise. If
right.
you're, if you're a machinist, you have an area of expertise. But you can't have science fiction that is so technical that it will be oppressive to the reader. So you have to walk a very careful line
Yeah,
where,
and it can come off as bragging too, right?
well, not so much that. It's
Not
because
not bragging.
it should be just presenting evidence. But here's the quandary. That is, you need to present the evidence in a way in which people will read it and say, "This is very informed. These are the exact facts that I needed to know. Wow, I didn't realize this was possible." But you
Uh-huh.
can't use so much jargon and so many technical aspects of particular surgeries, or the way that the human nervous system works, or things like this, and make people feel like they're reading a medical paper. Most people
Yes,
don't want to read that.
right.
Still, for that particular story, it took 4 months to cook. I baked it for 4 months, because it's very important to be very careful in explaining something in an entirely accurate medical scientific way, but to make it accessible to all, and in a way that is interesting, that does not feel oppressive or off-putting, because not very many people want to sit around reading JAMA. I
Right.
am
And so
somebody
you
who
had
sits
to
around reading JAMA, but I know that the vast majority of people don't want to sit around and read JAMA.
they don't. And you had to, so you in a sense had to overlearn it. And so you had to like take in so much
Mhm,
that you had to chip away
mhm.
everything you learned to get something concise, but so that you still knew what you were talking about, but it wasn't boring, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's gotta feel. I know for me, like if I man, I'm going to read 2,000 pages of things and learn, and spit out maybe two of those pages.
Yeah.
Uh, but it does come through, and I think probably a process like that does come through as good writing. I'll give one example. I couldn't even finish it. There was a Star Trek Next Generation novel that it was about. Do you remember the episode Cause and Effect with Kelsey Grammer was Captain Bateson,
Mhm.
and he comes through time. Well, someone wrote a novel because he's obviously now in the Picard's timeline, and they wrote a novel, and he was
Tossed
still a
salads
captain.
and scrambled eggs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they wrote a novel about the Captain Bateson, and the author grew up. Their father, someone was like a maritime genius or a curator or something, and so the author knew tons about old Navy ships and old maritime traditions and everything. And it is throughout the entire book.
Mhm.
It's just this regurgitation of like, look at me and all this stuff I know. And
Oh,
I got
that's why
bored.
you said that earlier about it. The author that you're referring to came off as somebody who was just trying to show how much information he knew
Exactly.
instead of trying to walk people through the process.
Right.
Oh, that's yucky.
It
I
was so off-putting, and I put the
ew,
book I could not keep going. It was just like,
ew. I've
I
never
don't care.
encountered that before, but I
Oh,
can tell you that in academia, it is it's one very important part of being an academic and
ah,
taking on the responsibility as a scholar is
Mark
go
Harkness
through
got it. Ship of the Line. That's what it was called.
yeah, ship of the line. But you have to process the information and present it. And in so doing it, it's a very academic enterprise.
Hmm. Yeah.
Enterprise. But
Oh, hey, look who's here. Anti-narrative Jill
oh,
showed up.
Julie, look at
Hey, Jill.
you.
The information needs to have a purpose. Yes.
Yes, it does, and certainly it must if it's in a short story where it is the primary idea, the
Yeah.
principal idea. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
So
my apologies to those who like Ship of the Line. I couldn't stand it. It was just, oh my goodness. Okay, I get it. Yes, naval ships had a main mast and another. Okay.
yeah, so yeah, so that's my process. It's more academic than anything else because I come from the world of science and technology, and communication systems, and the digital world, and
Yeah.
computing, and cybernetics, and semiotics, and so when I want to discuss an idea, it's just important that I get all the facts together so that people are like, "Oh, wow, I'm learning so much. I'm learning so many cool things in this story, and I can't believe that all this stuff is possible." And then walk away from it saying, "Wow, that was a wild ride, and I really enjoyed it." And so
Yeah.
some work goes into it, and people because of what I do and who I am, I think people have that high expectation of me that they know that when they read something that I've written, they say, okay, so this is how it's done. So this is how they do that particular connection in the brain. This is how they attach that particular part to your muscle. And
Mhm.
and um and they expect that from me. And so I want to deliver. I want them to walk away and say, I fully understand this science now, and I fully understand what's happening here. And wow, that was a wild ride.
Yeah, you had to become your own consultant,
Well, no,
pretty much.
no, but I do whenever we're talking science, whenever we're talking tech, whenever we're talking about comms, cybernetics, semiotics, these sorts of things, I make sure that I go in and get all the evidence that I would use in a research paper.
Mhm.
I get all the evidence I would use in a lecture or in a seminar. I get all of the information that I would use in a manuscript for the presentation to academia, and I find a way to make that interesting for everyone so that everyone can be in on the discussion. And I think that's what science fiction authors should be doing. I don't think people want science fiction authors turning science fiction into romantic comedy.
Yeah, and you know who I think would be cheering right now if they were here is Princess Fiona. Princess
Yeah,
Fiona would be absolutely applauding everything you
Princess
just
Fiona.
said.
Princess Fiona is mine and Clubby's physicist.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
and she was always very like, "Hey, you, this is not
And
right."
she
Like,
wasn't good. She wasn't Google physicist either. She's a lettered physicist.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Oh, I
I think
love
she
Fee.
would.
Whenever she used to come in and she would give people hell because they had it wrong or the show had it wrong, I would always say fee, fi, fo, fum.
Yeah,
Because she would just come in and because she's a giant in that, and so
hmm,
it was wonderful to have her in the chat, and I would do my best to showcase anything she said, because here you have
yes,
this physicist, a lettered physicist in the chat who's explaining it, and it's their area of expertise, and isn't that wonderful?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, when you were explaining that, I'm like, Princess Fiona would have been just given the applause right there about being accurate, and it's important. Uh, and oh wait, look who else is here. We have a Stark of Iron came in.
Oh,
Hey,
hey,
Tony.
Tone. There's
Tony,
an
good evening,
amazing
brother.
person. He has put so much effort into promoting my stories, and he is one of
Oh
my
yeah.
Patreon backers, and he has worked his tail off to promote my books, and he is such
Mhm.
a great guy. Thank you,
Yeah,
Tony.
Tony and I are friends in real life. We talk almost daily on the phone. We become brothers, and
Okay.
and man, we have written some really good comedy stuff. I realize I've got a little bit of a knack for it.
Yeah,
It's fun. It's fun working with him. And there's Larry. Larry just sent in a $2
he did.
sticker super chat. Says I had to fix Grok on X about 2001 Space Odyssey book.
Yeah. Yep. It only knows what you feed it. And so we need experts like Larry, because Larry actually is a subject matter expert in the area of science fiction. And he's a science fiction snob. So he's wonderful to have around because, of course,
Mhm.
I love science fiction snobs. That's why Clubby and I got along so well. But Larry is terrific for that. And I think, didn't we miss another comment that Larry made? And I think Gwagnar
Oh,
sent you a gift as well. I think
oh,
Larry
did
sent you
he?
another gift, and Gwagnar
Oh,
sent you a gift as well.
did I miss something? Oh,
At
guys, I'm so.
9:48,
Oh my
Larry.
goodness, Ragnar, I'm so sorry. Oh
That's
my,
okay. And
thank you,
there's one
RM.
before that that belongs to Larry as well at 9:48.
Oh, I am so sorry. I've been so enthralled in what RM is saying, you guys. My goodness. Wait, where is it? 9:48. I'm looking. Okay, there's
Oh, you can
radioactive.
find it in your starred panel. Just click on your starred panel.
Oh, on the StreamYards.
Yep. If you click on
Oh,
your,
there. Oh, yeah. Okay, duh. Okay, thank you. I'm
that's
still new
okay.
at this a little bit. Well,
That's okay.
I'm very unused to receiving super chats,
That's
but
okay, sweetheart.
I
Yeah, at
appreciate it.
9:48. If you just click on it, we can put Larry.
I
Larry!
would love to see Raquel. Okay, I did see that pop in. Larry.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I just want to say thank you to Larry for sending that in to promote Sean's channel and support Sean's channel. I would like to say this. Larry is a very good friend of mine, and what he is saying, I actually have the same feeling. It's something we've all been talking about for a few years now, ever since Science Fiction Tales Volume 1 came out. But I need to set some ground rules. And that is this. I would love to have someone illustrate the stories and illustrate each volume of Science Fiction Tales. But it actually has to be done by hand. I'm spoiled. I was totally spoiled by having Hungry Boy do that painting for me, and then taking that
Yes.
very expensive digital image of it and sending it to me. And I mean, he's, a famous retired comic book artist who did a painting for me. So, and my friendship with him was such because we both have a massive love of 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s science fiction art. And so that's the first book. The second book was done by a local artist, and it was actually done, I think she uses pens to do that. Anyway, the thing is that I think pretty much all of the corporations at this point are using AI for even the big names in publishing. Um,
Yeah.
and you can tell because all of the covers now look the same. I would just like to say that if anyone ever approached me and said, look, we know that you're trying to get your science fiction out there, I'd like to do an illustration with you. It's just really important for people to know that I have made a commitment to my fans, to the people who have read my book. I think I've sold around 1,000 copies now. I think I'm about to breach 1,000.
Oh
um,
wow.
I just want to say that it has to be real art. Okay, it has to be a real art made by real artists. I can't, I'm sorry. I love you all very much. And I humbly thank you for all of the offers that I receive to offering art to help promote the stories. but it has to be done by a human being. It can't be done on computer.
No.
It's just, that's just not what I want to do. I want to promote real artists and real artistry. And like I said, I'm spoiled because how many people get a famous comic book artist, message them, and that person says to you, I just read Georgia. It stayed with me over the last 2 weeks. I can't get it out of my head. I would love to do something for you. I would love to do an illustration for you. And I just wrote him back and I said, how about the cover of the book?
Yeah.
And he said, yes, I will. And it's very obvious that he couldn't draw it for me, because if he drew it, then everyone would know who he was. So he had to paint it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I have the honor of having his last work, his very last large piece of art that he had ever done. And so that's a pretty incredible thing. And he was under contractual obligations, and he had royalties that were involved and stuff like that. So, he can't even name himself. And so I
Right.
love that person. And I also love Amanda, Art by Cora, these two incredible artists that are trying to help people get to my work, trying to attract people to my work. So I would like to illustrate it. If there are any illustrators out there that would like to reach out and talk to me about it, I absolutely love that Larry asked about that and that Larry brought it up. It's what I want to, but everyone just needs to know, though, that the ground rules are, and I don't mean to be rude. I very humbly apologize to you, but it cannot be digital work.
No,
Okay?
absolutely not. No, hand stuff. And if I may, I'm not offering to do something because I don't have the skill that would be required for your stuff. But I have done a little painting.
Oh, wow.
And I'll share that here. So right here is the Enterprise that I painted in acrylic.
What a great job!
Yeah, that was
That's
an acrylic.
beautiful.
Thank you. This I sent to Doomcock. He has this now.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then this was a Borg that I never finished. This is an oil painting that I never finished it. And then there's an X-wing and the TIE fighter behind it that I didn't finish back here.
That's amazing.
And then this one here is one of my favorite pieces that I did. This is an oil painting that I did.
Absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it's awesome. It's really great. You should be so proud. That's cool
thank you.
stuff.
I'll do one for you, but it just as a personal piece, and I'll mail it up to you.
Do you have any idea how invigorating real art is? In art in the age of mechanical reproduction by Benjamin. Like, I wish everyone could read that, because there is an aura in real art. The sublime can be felt in real art, and it will never be felt with AI. And it's just the front of that book for me, it's a calling card. It's everything I believe in. And so when I see, Art by Cora, and I see Hungry Boy on the fronts of my covers, I just think to myself, this is what everything that I'm trying to say. This is real art. This is beautiful. Anyway, I'm sorry for that. And now you can go on to Quagmire. I'm so sorry. I just love Larry, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, that was good. I got a chance to show off some of my paintings,
it's amazing, and I love your art. And you're trying to undersell it. I think your art is beautiful. Your art is beautiful.
Thank you. It's I'll do one for you. Would you like an Enterprise or?
Oh, yes.
I'm not good with people.
I hate to ask anyone for anything, but if you have time and it's something that you would like to do, I mean, goodness knows, that I would love to have it. I already have a piece of you in my office. I have a piece of our friendship that I see every day.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like to do the paintings too. It's got to make the time to do it. But
your paintings are terrific. You should not.
Thank you.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
I'll dig up one. The last one I did was over Christmas for my daughter. I think, but I want to get to Gwagnor's wonderful $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Gwag.
Gwaggy, I love you. Thank you, Gwaggy.
Everyone sign up for Raquel's Patreon, and there's the link. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't know if that would have been clickable in the chat, Gwagnar. Can you post that as a general? Just post it in the general chat, because I don't know if people can click on a super chat link. But that would be great. And of course, everyone, Raquel's Amazon link has been pinned at the top for a while. And thank you, brother. Larry says I had to fix. Oh yeah, this one we read.
I love Larry.
Rock. And everyone, thank you guys so much, man. This has been. I remember. I know how Clobby would be when he'd get a super chat. He'd just like kind of stumble over things. I don't know how to accept it other than saying thank you.
It's called being humble, and the internet needs way more of that.
I think the world does, right?
It is an awkward thing, like when you make something and then people reward you for it. But the thing is that if you accept it humbly and you show your love and your respect, and you always honor it as being something to make more of what you're doing, I think that is an incredibly special thing, you know? I never thought that I would ever have a Patreon, ever. I never thought that would happen. I was going to sell my stories for 99 cents each, and once I reached 10, I would be like Edgar Allan Poe's publishing company, and I would put 10 stories together, and I'd sell them. And then Larry and other people came forward, and they said to me, like, you have to, like, we want to help. We want to help. We want to get other people reading them. And because of that, I'm able to purchase author copies and break even. And I can go to shows, and I can do book signings, and I can get out there, and I can try and get as many people reading as possible. I don't think I'm ever going to make enough money to survive off of my writing, unless, you know, I get some big book deal, or somebody reads science fiction tales and wants to do an Electric Dreams. I mean, I loved Electric Dreams. That was one of the best things. Like, if you have any reason to have Netflix, and that's the only reason, because I'm not a big fan of Netflix, but Electric Dreams is absolutely gorgeous. Like, it's just perfection. Anyway, if something like that happens, I think that it will take off, and that would be amazing. But
I think it's in the cards. I think it's going to happen.
Oh, well, yeah.
I really do. If anyone deserves it, it is you. And you know what? You mentioned Poe earlier, and I was going to mention this, but Tony says, Raquel, if you ever want to hear some Poe narrated, I know a demon who can oblige. And what he's referencing is Tony does an amazing reading of The Cask of Amontillado.
That's a great story.
It's my favorite. It is my absolute favorite. And Tony does this rendition of it that will blow you away. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's really good. And Tony, you need to put that as a video on your channel, bud.
That is a horrifying story, though. Like,
oh, right?
It's horrifying. But I mean, that's what they did back then. I mean, and Poe gets that from Greek tragedy. But being immured in a wall, I mean, that's like, just think about it. I mean, I Nation,
everyone's worst nightmare.
I Nation is one of the worst ways that you can die, and it would be that, or you would go insane, and you would be clawing at the wall, and you're bricked in, and worst of all is it's a catacomb, and so there are all these dead bodies around you for generations after generation after generation. So it's such that is a horrible story, and it's wonderful all at once.
Oh, it's so good. And because even to this day, even though it never happens really, I mean, people are still to this day deathly afraid of being buried alive. It is one of our mortal, it's like one of those instinctual fears, like fear of spiders or that. and it just taps into it. And
Yeah.
and not only that, but it's an intriguing story too.
Yeah. And imagine that it's a catacomb, so like you have space to move around. So
Yeah.
you're basically sealed in a small cave.
Oh God.
Like
I mean,
imagine like you would just like you would rip all your nails out and just pull off all of your skin
oh,
digging at and these catacombs were normally under these homes and they still exist today in many parts of Europe. And
yeah.
so if you were like if you were to try and pull at the stone, like these are foundational stones. They're chosen because they're foundational stones. So the surrounding earth, it's quite tough. I mean, you couldn't even dig yourself out to the next catacomb.
Oh
So,
no.
but just the very fact that here we are talking about Edgar Allan Poe, and I feel so bad because Poe died unread. Nobody read anything he wrote. He never made a nickel off of his stories, and
You're
he died
right.
unknown. He died in a gutter.
And that goes to something we were talking about before, is sometimes like, and some people, maybe I'm wrong, but people have tapped Poe as one of the original grandfathers of science fiction.
Well, he had
Uh,
lots of opinions on science fiction, and yeah, they were. He also had lots of opinions on short stories.
right, and it's kind of, I guess what I was trying to convey is it goes back to what we were saying. Like sometimes really good science fiction or really good writing is not appreciated until 20, 30, 40 years later.
Kafka, Lovecraft, Poe.
Right, right.
Like the list goes on and on and on and on of people who were just they weren't discovered, and that's why I'm telling you, I would be nothing and nowhere without my patrons. Right now I'm breaking even because of them, and I'm able to get out and do these shows, but these shows cost a lot of money, and
Yeah,
the books cost a lot of money, and even if you're buying at author prices, it's still like there's no way to make any money in it. But I knew this signing up, and so did they. They just want to get as many people as possible reading my
yeah,
stuff, so maybe I can get to the next level. And maybe if we could do something celluloid, if we could push these to being something celluloid, or just
sure.
even having them take off where people like recognize them and enjoy them and read them and say, oh wow, like I'm reading something, and nobody's telling me what to do or what to think. Nobody's admonishing me. Nobody's telling me I have wrong think, and I can be double plus good if I just obey the corporate messaging. um if that could happen, Sean, I would be so happy.
Mhm.
But I mean, what am I going to do? I mean, if it does happen, what am I going to do? Like, I have so many people to bring with me
Yeah,
that
well,
the first
that would
time
be a good problem to have, wouldn't it?
it will. Like one of my first phone calls is going to be to Larry. One of my first phone calls is definitely going to be to Gwagnar and all of my patrons.
Yeah,
And that's crazy because when this whole thing started, many of them were anonymous names, and now like I'm really to the point where I feel like one of these 19th century artists or authors who has these professional patrons. And this is a very unique and special and wonderful thing that is a part of our art and entertainment history. And so now it's like I want to name these people their real names in this third volume, because this whole book is dedicated to them. This whole book is dedicated to them for believing in me, for loving me, for pushing me to go on, for making me get a Patreon, for getting all these people to read all these books. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're essentially making it possible for other people to buy the books and read them. So I love these people. I will never ever find a way to express my full gratitude, the fullness of my gratitude to them, because I'm not a particularly weepy type of person. But wow, like I have seasonal allergies without having seasonal allergies whenever I talk about my patrons, because they are the finest human beings who have done so much for me. I love them so much.
yeah, that's wow. I just want to, well, you were talking about the next book and SP4H, and Thank you, SP Forge, with a $10 super chat. Says, excellent show tonight, Sean. Thank you. And good to see you again, Raquel. Can't
Love you.
wait
Mwah, mwah.
for volume 3. Okay, I have to ask this, and if you don't want to answer it, that's okay.
Okay.
Are volumes 2 and 3 connected to volume 1?
They are.
Okay, so we get to stay in this wonderful world that you've created.
Well, here's the thing. I am very heavily influenced by Gene Roddenberry. And Gene Roddenberry is something that a literary scholar who I have a lot of respect for. He is a local comparative literature scholar and literature scholar here in Alberta. And he's also the editor of my books. When he was reading them, he introduced me to a literary concept called heterocosmica. And then I went and I bought a book written about heterocosmica the second that he said it. And because I just love him. He's just everything to me. And so heterocosmica is a perfect expression of what Gene Roddenberry was doing and what I'm doing. And that is, these are possible futures. These are possible futures. These are possible now, maybe tomorrow, maybe 50 years from now, maybe 1,000 years from now. These are possible futures. When you look at Gene Roddenberry's work, you don't say to yourself, oh, well, he was wrong at predicting this. He was wrong at predicting that. What Gene Roddenberry wrote was heterocosmica. It is a possible world that he created. And so it will never be wrong. It was meant to show us a glimpse into futurism, a glimpse into technology, a glimpse into the possibility that we might not be alone in the universe, a glimpse into medical abuses, a glimpse into technological abuse as far as and computers abusing the individual and society. But just because it doesn't come to fruition doesn't mean that it's wrong. Just because it doesn't happen in the exact year that he said doesn't make it wrong, because it exists as heterocosmica. It is a possible reality, a possible world, and it exists inside of itself. It's a place you go to, and it's just marvelous. And so I love that, and I can't believe that this magnificent professor, who I love with all of my heart, he's just, to me, I think he's a preeminent scholar in our nation, Canada as a whole. He's just a brilliant literary scholar. The fact that he would say something like that to me, I just went away and cried 3 times.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So much for not being weepy and emotional. Well, everyone has the thermal exhaust port.
It's true, especially when you get into these intimate relationships with people, and when you write something, when you write a story, and other people are inside of your head, or you create a space where you get together to have a discussion that is a completely unreal space, but it becomes real to both of you because you share that space and you see that space, and that space becomes real as you share it. It is such an intimate and tender thing, and it is such an incredible process that is such a massive honor to me. I am deeply humbled by it. I consider it a great honor, and I just love my readers and their readership and the things that they're doing for my writing. I love them. I wouldn't be able to do it without them. And I love sharing this heterocosmica with you, this space that exists in both of our minds together as we share this space. And that's it.
Well, I am immensely happy for you, and I think you're an inspiration. I think if anything, anyone out there who's watching this now or on a repeat, we get 100 or 2 people watching these, because I have a lot of the people that subscribe to the channel are across the pond.
Yeah.
A lot of model builders and stuff, and so this is an inspiration. And even though I make models, we had Andy Masterson, who makes action figures, and Gary Ambrosia, who makes movie props, and
Their
Tony
maker.
makes wonderful dioramas we had on,
Yeah.
and you are creating fiction and writing. And that's why when I started this little show, originally I was thinking, oh, I'm going to get all the other modelers and talk about what techniques they use and stuff. And then I realized, no, the sci-fi workshop can mean anything.
Mhm.
And I'm having a lot more fun learning about other genres of creation, like
Mhm.
you're writing, we trying to have different folks on. And this has just been a wonderful conversation. Um, and before we go here, I want to say Gwagnar said something here.
What do you say?
Is this something you can talk about?
There is a local actor and director. He is immensely talented. And when I hear my stories being told out loud, I hear his voice.
Ah,
And he was at my book launch for my second book. And he did the readings in front of a crowd. And there were so many people there. The room was full. I couldn't believe it. The room was
yeah,
full. And afterwards we spoke, and he is currently recording both books. And
really? Oh,
he
wow.
we brought a mic to him with a boom and a sock, and he has what he needs. And it's incredible because when I hear my books, I hear him. But the odd thing about him is unlike any other reader, he has an intimate understanding of what is happening in these stories. And the
Mhm.
way that he emotes and inflects the story is exactly the way that I that it occurs in oral presentation. His orality, his oral
Yeah,
presentation, his oral interpretation is so incredible. Like, no wonder he's such a successful actor and director. He's amazing. Anyway, he
yeah.
is doing that now, and I'm not going to rush him as soon as
No.
he's done. No, um, as soon as he's done, I promise I will have news coming up about that on my Patreon.
Well, I threw up a thing for Tony. I was going to say it if he didn't. And if you're looking for another voice, or if you need one, Tony is the person that, gosh, he can do
You know,
voices and
if
inflections.
I didn't have all of that going on, Tony, that is such an incredible and amazing offer. And I just once again, I just want to thank you for backing my book, especially my first book. You went crazy and went to the top tier on my Patreon, and you went out of your way to make sure that people were reading my books and my stories. And then you had me on your show, and you were just so gracious. I felt like I was on Johnny Carson. Just
Yeah, he did a great,
his variety show is so cool.
yeah,
Um, it's like late night talk show, or not
right.
talk show, but like a late night entertainment show. Like I don't know. Like
Yeah, it was like
I
the
don't
Tower
really.
After Hours. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it was. Mhm.
I don't watch any of those shows because I don't really watch TV. But I really loved Johnny Carson when I was growing up,
Oh, me
and
too.
when
Yeah.
I got a little bit older and I was cynical, I really liked Late Night with David Letterman. And so
Yeah.
when Tony's doing his show, it totally reminds me of like a cross between Johnny Carson and Late Night with David Letterman.
Yeah, he throws in commercials, the
And
opening
you know what his commercials
song.
are? All of us.
Yes, yeah. I've
All of
got two
us.
of them on there.
He's promoting all of us. He's making these beautiful commercials about all the stuff that we're trying to do,
Yeah.
and he's telling people about it as though he is the David Letterman of our community. And so he's such a special and beautiful person, and it's a great honor for him to even offer to do something like that for me. I just love him. He's just so kind. He has been incredibly generous and kind to me. Thank you, Tony.
Tony's great, and I want to thank everyone here. I mean, gosh, everyone. I could spend an hour reading all these chats. Oh, hey, oh, look. Oh, we have someone else. Speaking of across the pond, TKS model Baumscheid. Frank, right? I think it's Frank.
Hello.
Yeah. This lovely person lives in Germany,
Oh, wow.
and so yeah. So I think we're just coming up on where people might be starting to stir and get out of bed over there.
Well, we're running really late, aren't we? Oh, and
Yeah.
Larry just mentioned his favorite, which is Ed Sullivan, a really big shoe.
Oh yeah. Tonight here in our show, the
Sure.
Flying Maori brothers.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
good impression.
Like I said, I'm trying to do some. I can't do them as good as Tony, but I try.
Yeah.
He sometimes I do Hank Hill, but not quite as good.
I've
Yeah.
never watched that show, but I just know about it because of Doomy. Like,
Oh yeah. It's actually pretty good.
God, yeah, I
It's
go to
been,
his Irish like that's how we became friends. Is after he was doing the video essays on the death of Star Trek and the maiming of Star Trek, he started doing Friday Night Frolics,
yeah.
and he very quickly turned it into Irish pub night. And of course, as you know, I'm ethnically, genetically Irish,
Hmm.
and I just love that tradition. And of course, I love all those songs. So whenever I would go hang out with him, I hear all these beautiful Irish songs, and he's singing all these gorgeous sea shanties and old jazz that I love, like really old great jazz that I just
Yeah.
absolutely love. And my husband and I would just turn him on and just listen to him on Friday nights, and it's just so magic. Anyway, I love him. Anyhow, he is the only reason why I know about this Hank Hill thing. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know about it. But he'll
Yeah.
he spontaneously will just break in sometimes with a Hank Hill voice.
Yeah.
So I've never watched the show, and yet because of Doomy, because we know DC, we know about this Hank Hill thing. Anyway,
Well,
so
he
funny.
really gets the character down because Hank is basically you make him a fish out of water.
Yeah.
You put him in a situation like, oh, I don't know. Oh.
Yeah, I
Uh,
love him. But and you know that the thing is that when he first came out, he came out on under anonymously because it was impossible for him to say the things that he was saying about Star Trek. It was dangerous for him
right.
to say the
Yeah.
things that he was saying about Star Trek and about the new Star Trek and about how horrible it was because people wouldn't even give him a chance to even explain himself. And instead of remaining anonymous and it being meaningless, he actually created an entire a vaudeville channel. And I when I think about him, I think about
Yes.
how classy and awesome it is that he's now this vaudevillian channel. It's like, you know, do you remember when we all had like cable and all of the channels were genres? He's
Oh
like
yeah.
Bravo or A&E. You go there and what you're expecting is something
Well,
vaudevillian. And
he taps into
yeah.
he really taps into. Have you ever heard his he did his own version of Who's on First? You know, the old Abbott and
Oh,
Costello
yeah, yeah, yeah,
bit.
I've heard him do that quite a few times.
Oh, it's amazing.
What was his super old character before he did Khan? Oh, he had this super old anyway, I love all of his characters. Anyways, he's a full-on vaudeville act because there are some nights when he's had a couple of glasses of whiskey, and I'll ask him to do some old, 1930s jazz
And he'll
thing.
just pull it out. Yeah.
And he'll just pull it out for me and get it
Yeah.
done. And there are times too when I've asked him if he could do like lesser known poetry and stuff, and he's like, "Absolutely, I'll do that for you, sweetheart." And
Yeah.
he'll read just and it turns it into something so special. And so now, he's escaped into this character, and now he's like the head of this network it's a channel unto itself, and it's vaudevillian, and it's beautiful, and it's fun, and we're a real family over there. And I love him, and I just wish him the greatest success. He's a cutie
Yeah.
patootie. And back when nobody knew who the heck either one of us were back in
Right. Yeah.
2017, we became friends, and that's just another reason to love him. I love him.
Yeah.
He's sincere, and he's a real sweetheart.
Yeah, and he inspired Tony, as he says here, inspired me to do variety shows, actually song and sing and make people laugh. And Tony's achieved a really good measure of success, and he's still growing to it. He inspired me to do this little channel, just just to get out there and do it, and
Yeah.
risk looking the fool.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
okay.
Gwagnar is gonna. I'm gonna be in so much trouble because
Oh,
Gwagnar is gonna be. Yeah,
okay.
Gwagnar wants me to talk about this. Gwagnar says that I'm the worst person at promoting myself.
Oh,
So
please do.
Gwaggy,
Wagner, put the links up, man.
yeah, no. That's not it. It's that Gwaggy just wants me to make sure that I say
Oh,
that we do a watch party on the last Sunday of the month, and we're curating extremely rare and lesser known science fiction. And the reason why we're able to do this is because Gwagnar has an extensive collection of rare, very rare, and lesser known science fiction, and he's digitizing it. So we are having
very
a
cool.
rollicking good time. He's doing it entirely for free for us. We all show up on the Cosme. We start at 2 p.m. We go to 9 p.m. and we all watch amazing science fiction together. And we have tons of laughs in the chat. So if you're interested in coming to that watch party, please know it's entirely free. We don't charge any money. You don't super chat. You don't give gifts. You don't do anything. You just show up. It's just my thank you to my patrons. If you would like to come and enjoy yourself, please do, because Wagner is putting a lot of work into digitizing these amazing. He even digitized Fantastic Planet. And he did it in French and in English. And
Wow. Also, Wagner is bilingual.
Yeah. A Savage Planet is it's Savage Planet. But I always, the translation isn't correct. It's supposed to be Savage Planet. Anyway, you know what I mean.
So Savage then.
Yeah. Well, exactly, right. And yeah, Larry, we watched The Time Machine. I am a huge fan of The Time Machine. I love H.G. Wells. He's like a science fiction god to me. And I watched the 1960s film Time Machine.
Loved that as a kid.
Wagner set it up for me. And we all watched it together, and it was glorious. And we're going to be doing Black Hole.
Oh, I'm going to have to try to be there. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
I absolutely love Black Hole.
Yeah.
I had no access to it when I was young because, poor and Canadian. Yeah. And I was introduced to Black Hole by the greatest Scuba Pete. And he said,
Scuba Pete.
Yeah, Scuba Pete.
Yeah.
And so
it's available on YouTube, by the way, everyone. The Black Hole, you can watch it right now on YouTube for free.
Yeah. And so that was amazing. And yeah, Larry, it was my first time seeing The Time Machine. Everybody in the chat was like, first time. I'm like, yep, you guys know me. I'm a book person.
I read that. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, well, I'm a book person. I've never seen any of these films. I read these books. Like when people were like, The Island of Dr. Moreau sucked. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's a great book.
Thinking of the movie.
Right? They were talking about the movie, right? I'm just like, you gotta read the book. Anyway.
Now I remember I think one of the first interactions I had with you was when I first discovered the Saturday Show way back.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the movie Invaders from Mars.
Yeah.
And I remember we hardly knew each other, and you're like, oh, what's that? And I said it was like from 1953. It was, and you watched it. I remember the next week you came on and you were praising it.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah, of course.
That little kid was so cute. His little freckles.
That kid was adorable. And the 1980s one, do you remember that I watched the 1980s one afterward? And I was like, Sean, the 1980s one is horrible compared to the OG.
Oh, I know.
The OG is glorious. And you're just like, I can't believe this is happening to this poor little boy.
Yeah. Yeah. The Invaders from Mars, it was... the Martian and the thing. My friend and I, when we were little, we called it the Ooger Booger. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got the Invaders from Mars is 1953. It's a very classic 50s sci-fi movie.
I love all of it. I even love Invasion of the Flying Saucer Men. And I also believe that Invasion of the Flying Saucer Men is actually the greatest science fiction poster ever produced in the history of science fiction,
Oh,
then and now and in the future. No one will ever beat Invasion of the Flying Saucermen as a poster. It is the ultimate sci-fi movie poster, the best of all movie posters for
I'm
sci-fi.
gonna pull it up here. Open a new window. No, that's
Ooh,
not it.
and I watched Invasion of the Body Snatchers for the first time since I was a kid when I saw it at the drive-in. And I was as scared this time watching Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1973 as I was, not 1973, 1978, 79. Anyway, I was as afraid as I was when I was a kid this time around. I actually had to look away.
Really?
Yeah, I had to mute it. Gwaggy warned me. Gwaggy and I were walkie-talkieing. I walkie-talkie with Gwaggy like I did with Clobby. And he walkie-talkied me, and he's like, yeah, I need you to look away from the TV now. So I just did as I was
Yeah.
told.
Oh, look at this.
Oh, yeah,
Look at
that's
these
the greatest.
guys.
That is the greatest science fiction poster in the history of science fiction film. There is no one who even comes close to it. It is gorgeous, and it is everything that you need to know about science fiction. It all happens here.
Oh yeah. I get to see it with the echo. See, teenagers versus the saucer men.
Yes.
Disembodied hand that crawls. The night the world nearly ended.
And the damsel, look at the damsel.
Wow.
Look at the damsel.
Oh yeah. Oh
Look
yeah,
at
with
her
her arm in
legs.
the air. It's like,
Look
oh,
at her beautiful feet.
oh
And then
yeah.
look at these beastly creatures with giant brains. And then look at
Oh my
in the
gosh, yeah.
background, the people in total chaos, and then the skyscrapers. The light's so
I know
bright
Tony's
you can't even see the windows.
doing his cryptosporidian impression right now. There was a game called Destroy All Humans. It looks like this was really based on. It was based on this.
I love you, Jimmy,
Yeah,
sweetheart.
look at
Yeah,
the brains,
yeah,
and they're big. They're big guys.
yeah.
They're not
I
little
was
spindly things.
I was in our family room, which, as you know, is like a giant. Like our basements are, they look the same as other people's upstairs in the United States. So it's usually a giant family room, like a great room, and ours has a pool table and a foosball table and and all these things. But flanking in every room are all of my animatronics and all of my posters and all of my science fiction paraphernalia. And my husband was standing in the foyer the other day, and he said, I learned something, just walking down this hall, and I was just thinking about it the other day, and I said, what? And he said, everything that you like, they're just giant green creatures. Everything you like is is a giant
Uh,
green creature.
he
And
saw a
this poor
pattern.
guy, this poor guy lives in our house, and I treat it like our home is like a bookstore. And so every room has stacks and stacks of
Mm.
books and shelves and shelves of books and animatronics and all these old movie posters and these giant, I have a giant animatronic Wolfman and all these things. And that's what stood out to him. He says I like giant green monsters. So.
Well, yeah, he saw a little pattern there, huh? I wonder.
Yeah, he noticed a pattern, and yeah. Anyways, he's been my best friend for 32 years. We've been best friends. I
Yeah,
think 33 years, best friends. So, but to hear him say that, it sort of just made me giggle a little bit.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Anyway, well, we're pushing on the third hour here. Wow, I
yeah.
think this has got to be the longest one we've done.
I
So
got a scoot. I wish we would have started like an hour earlier because I could go an hour more. And Larry, Forbidden Planet is one of the greatest films in the history of all film
I
making. The
finally watched
poster is
that.
so sexy and so beautiful. It is a very close second to the Saucer Men, and very close to the Saucer Men. For me, it's sometimes it's number one, but it's a very close second to the Saucer Men.
I finally saw that. I was ashamed to say I hadn't, but talk about inspiration for Star Trek. My goodness, was it good?
Beautiful.
And to think it was starring a guy that had something like this. I keep this. I bought this little thing. It works.
Hysterical.
Yeah, I won't. Oh, never mind. I did. Yeah, there we go.
You had to get some help there. Yeah,
Yeah.
Forbidden Planet is definitely like rotational in my top 3 greatest science fiction films of
Mhm.
all time. Most of the time, I would say it depends upon how old I am and what's going on in the world. It's definitely like number 1 sometimes. Like right now, I would say it's number 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Star Trek pilot. Yeah, pretty much, Larry. Like, that's what.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and in fact, I might go to sleep to that tonight. I might throw that on.
It's just great stuff.
Yeah.
And Gwaggy and I, for those for the Patreon thank you parties, those watch parties that we're doing the Quester tapes. We're doing
Ooh.
yeah, we're doing Genesis too. And I'm just very excited. We're yeah, we're gonna do the vault.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're doing it all.
The pooter tutor dominates the streams. Yeah, there's a song I see when we do karaoke. Sometimes I'll do a parody of the Elvis song. I can't help falling in love with you. I do one. I can't help farting in front of you.
That's
And
disgusting.
yeah, it is. But I'll do it, and I'll do the pooter tutor, and it's fun. But you know.
Great. Well,
But
on
anyway,
that note,
yeah, on that toot. Um, but no, and all kidding aside, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I've learned so much, and it's been a pleasure asking questions. I really appreciate being able to dig into your thought process, and I appreciate you coming on and teaching us a lot of things.
well, you all teach me every single time we get together, so it's mutual, and I want to thank you for thinking of me and for just sending me off a little note and saying, "Hey, come hang out." That's a very special thing, and I just want you to know that it was an honor and a pleasure to be here, and I'm humbled to be asked that you would want to spend time with me and to share that time with all of your friends and the people who are supporting you on your marvelous channel and in your marvelous endeavor where you're creating beautiful things and showcasing makers. The Sci-Fi workshop is definitely something that both Clubby and I fully supported, and I love your project, and I think that your friendship is a blessing to all of us, and I love that you're a part of this community. So
Oh,
thank you for having me.
and and I'm blessed to say that you and I share some of those supporters, and a lot of these people here support both of us, and I we both thank you guys, everyone, for coming to hang out, and the super chats. My goodness, I always get teary eyed when they come in.
Yeah,
It's just so
that's the
nice.
thing, hey, and you don't even have to be a weepy person, but the thing is that there are some incredibly sincere people in our communities
Yes.
where the only thing that limits our friendships, is that distance. And other than that, they are the kindest, most intelligent, thoughtful, and loving people you will ever meet. And to have them in our lives for hours and hours and hours, years on end is a massive treat, and that's a great use for the internet, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of all the evil uses, this is one of the best uses, and and I just love each and every person who came here tonight to hang out with us, and many of them are old friends, and just it's great to hear their voices and to hear their thoughts and to share this time with them. They're just
Mhm.
amazing people, and I don't know why they put up with me or why they even like me, but I love them, and I just appreciate them.
Well, we do, and as a closing note to any of the modelers out there who are listening, I hope you've learned something here. I mean, I definitely have. because even when we're creating our little ships, we're putting ourselves in the bridge of the little ships we make, and we're creating stories or reliving stories of our favorite episodes. Like when I was building the Enterprise D, I played the entirety of the Next Generation building that kit.
Yeah.
And it took me in there, and it really is like, you find that inspiration to put yourself in another state of mind, in another world, and it does come out in our work. So I will close with that. And again, thank you, RM. I will say good night to you backstage for a minute, if that's okay.
Sure.
And then I'll end the stream here. But I want to thank everyone again. All these names to mention, Admiral Teague. Real quick, it's been a pleasure working with Admiral Teague, and I'm having a wonderful time talking Trek with him on Saturdays, and JT Kirk, and it's fun.
Kirok?
Yeah,
JT Kirk. He is Kirok.
Yeah, it's been fun, and I'll talk to you about that backstage. But it's been fun to get on and talk about Trek, because it needs to be talked about. It needs to be celebrated and preserved and saved.
Yeah.
All science fiction does. So.
Yep.
Anyway, and everyone, good night. I'm going to end the stream, and I will see you backstage. I'm Briggs.
Love
everyone,
Good night, everyone. I love you. I love you. I love you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Buy her books. Okay. Good night, everybody.